Hey guys, welcome back to my new channel. Today we will see what if Harry Potter story. If you like the video, please leave like, share and comment and share with your friend. And now let's start the video.
Chapter 1. The goblets demand. The flames in the goblet of fire had always burned blue-white, ethereal and ancient, but when they turned red for the fourth time that night, Harry Potter felt something cold settle in his stomach. He knew before Dumbledore's voice called out. Knew it in the sudden stillness of the Gryffindor table, in the way Hermione's hand froze halfway to her pumpkin juice, in the prickling sensation at the back of his neck that had saved his life more than once. Harry Potter. The great hall didn't erupt into whispers. It went silent. Completely, utterly silent, as if someone had cast a silencing charm over 400 students. Harry didn't move. Harry Potter, Dumbledore repeated, and there was something in the old man's voice, confusion. Concern, that made it worse. Ron's elbow dug into his ribs. Mate. Mate, that's you. I didn't put my name in. The words came out flat. Calm. Harry was distantly surprised by how calm he sounded when everything inside him had gone razor-sharp and cold. I didn't enter. Mr. Potter. McGonagall had risen from the staff table, her face pale. You must come forward. Harry looked at the charred piece of parchment in Dumbledore's hand. Looked at the goblet, its flames now settling back to blue-white as if nothing had happened. Looked at Cedric Diggory, Victor Crumb, and Fleur Delacour standing near the antechamber door, their expressions ranging from confusion to outrage. He stood up. The walk from the Gryffindor table to the front of the great hall was the longest of his life. He felt every eye on him, Malfoy's smirk, Snape's unreadable stare, Hagrid's worried frown. The Durmstrang students muttered in Bulgarian. The Beauxbatons girls whispered behind their hands. Dumbledore handed him the parchment. Harry looked at it. His name. Written in handwriting that wasn't his. Through the door, Harry, Dumbledore said quietly. We must discuss this with the other judges. Harry walked past the three champions without looking at them. The antechamber was warm, a fire crackling in the hearth, and he crossed to the far wall and turned to wait. He didn't have to wait long. The door burst open and they flooded in, Dumbledore, McGonagall, Snape, Karkaroff with his goatee bristling, Madame Maxime ducking through the doorway, Ludo Bagman bouncing on his heels with inappropriate excitement, and Bartemius Crouch. Harry watched them all. Watched their faces. Noted who looked surprised and who didn't. Crouch's expression was carefully blank. Extraordinary. Bagman was saying. Absolutely extraordinary. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present the fourth Triwizard Champion? There cannot be four champions. Madame Maxime's voice was cold. The rules are clear. The goblet has spoken, Crouch said. His voice was clipped, precise. The boy must compete. Now, hang on, Harry started. The contract is binding. Crouch spoke over him as if he hadn't opened his mouth. When a wizard's name emerges from the goblet of fire, they are magically bound to compete. There is no alternative. But I didn't put my name in. Crouch finally looked at him. His eyes were dark, flat, utterly without warmth. That is irrelevant. The goblet does not distinguish between self-submission and submission by another party. You are bound. Someone else entered my name without my permission, and I'm supposed to just accept that? Yes. The word hung in the air. Harry felt that cold thing in his stomach crystallize into something harder. Albus. Karkaroff had drawn himself up to his full height. This is unacceptable. Hogwarts cannot have two champions. I demand, you may demand nothing. Crouch didn't even look at the Durmstrang headmaster. The goblet has made its decision. The tournament will proceed with four champions. Perhaps, Dumbledore said slowly, we should first determine how Harry's name came to be in the goblet at all. Harry, did you ask an older student to submit your name? No. Did you find some way to circumvent the age line yourself? No. Dumbledore's blue eyes searched his face. Harry met them steadily. I believe him, Dumbledore said finally. Of course you do. Karkaroff's lip curled. Your own student. How convenient that Hogwarts now has twice the chance of winning. Igor, do not be foolish. Harry stopped listening. He was watching Crouch, who had moved to stand near the fireplace. The man's hands were clasped behind his back. His posture was rigid, military. His face showed nothing. But his right thumb was tapping against his left wrist. A rapid, irregular rhythm. He was nervous. Mr. Crouch. Harry's voice cut through the argument. Everyone fell silent. You said the goblet doesn't distinguish between self-submission and submission by another party. That seems like a significant legal loophole. Has the Ministry done anything to address it? Crouch's thumb stopped moving. The goblet's magic is ancient. It cannot be easily modified. But someone modified it tonight. Someone made it accept a fourth name from a fourth school that doesn't exist. Someone tricked magic you just described as ancient and unmodifiable. Doesn't that concern you? The investigation will. What investigation? You just said I have to compete regardless of how my name got in. If the outcome doesn't change either way, what's the point of investigating? Crouch's jaw tightened. The magical contract was created without my consent. In the Muggle world, that's called fraud. Is wizarding law really so backward that it enforces fraudulent contracts? The silence that followed was different from before. Heavier. Snape, of all people, looked almost impressed. Mr. Potter, Crouch said slowly, you would do well to remember to whom you are speaking. I know exactly who I'm speaking to. The head of the Department of International Magical Cooperation. The man responsible for organizing this tournament. The man who oversaw the goblet's security. Harry took a step forward. So either someone tricked ancient, unmodifiable magic under your watch, which makes you incompetent. Or you knew this was possible and didn't prevent it, which makes you negligent. Or, Harry. Dumbledore's voice was sharp. That is enough. Or you knew it was going to happen. Which makes you complicit. Crouch's face had gone pale. Not with fear, with fury. How dare you? I have served the Ministry for over 40 years. I prosecuted Death Eaters while you were in nappies. I will not stand here and be accused by a child. Then tell me who put my name in the goblet. I don't know. Tell me how they did it. I don't know. Tell me why, out of everyone at this school, someone chose the one person who can't legally enter. The one person who would draw maximum attention. The one person who survived Voldemort. Several people flinched at the name. Crouch didn't. I don't. No. Each word was bitten off, precise as a curse. Harry held his gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I believe you, he said. You don't know who or how. He paused. But you know why, don't you? You know what this is really about. Something flickered in Crouch's eyes. There and gone, too fast to identify. You are being paranoid, Crouch said. And tiresome. The fact remains that your name emerged from the goblet. You will compete in the tournament. That is final. No. The word fell like a stone into still water. I'm sorry. Crouch's voice had gone dangerously soft. I said no. I won't compete. You have no choice. The magical contract was made without my consent. I'm not bound by it. The goblet's magic will punish you. Then let it. Harry spread his hands. Strip my magic. Kill me. Whatever it does. I won't compete in a tournament I didn't enter, organized by people who can't or won't explain how my name got into that cup. For a moment, no one spoke. Harry could hear the fire crackling. Could hear Bagman's nervous breathing. Could hear his own heartbeat, steady and slow. "Harry," Dumbledore said quietly. "The consequences of breaking a goblet contract are not well documented. It is possible that refusal could seriously harm you. More than competing in a tournament designed to kill people. The tournament has been made safer, a student still dies every few decades. Those are the official statistics. How many near misses go unreported?" Harry shook his head. "I'm not afraid of the goblet's punishment, Professor. I'm afraid of competing in something I don't understand, against enemies I can't see, for reasons no one will explain." He turned back to Crouch. "Someone wanted me in this tournament badly enough to trick ancient magic. Someone knew enough about the goblet to make it accept a fourth school. Someone planned this carefully, months in advance." Harry's voice was still calm, but there was steel beneath it now. "And you want me to just compete? Go along with their plan? Make myself a target for whatever comes next?" Crouch's hands had clenched into fists behind his back. "You have no proof of any conspiracy. I have my name on that parchment in handwriting that isn't mine. I have a 14-year-old entered into a competition with a minimum age of 17. I have the head of International Magical Cooperation telling me to shut up and compete instead of investigating who did this and why." Harry smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "I'd say I have plenty of proof that something is very, very wrong." "The boy has a point." Mad-Eye Moody's voice came from the doorway. Harry hadn't heard him enter. The ex-Auror stumped into the room, his magical eye spinning wildly before fixing on Crouch. "Someone went to a lot of trouble to get Potter into this tournament. Be interesting to know why." Crouch's expression flickered again. "Alastair. This isn't your concern." "Everything's my concern. Constant vigilance." The last words were shouted, making Bagman jump. "That's what I've always said. And right now, my vigilance is telling me something stinks." Moody's magical eye swiveled to Harry. Something about the way it focused made Harry's skin prickle, but the old Auror just nodded slowly. "Smart lad, refusing to compete. Stupid of whoever set this up to think he'd just go along with it." "He must compete," Crouch insisted. "The contract, then let the contract enforce itself." Moody shrugged. "Boy says he won't compete. Goblet says he has to. Let magic sort it out instead of forcing him at one point. The tournament cannot proceed without what? For champions. Seems to me we've got 3 perfectly good ones right here." Moody jerked his thumb at Cedric, Crumb, and Fleur, who had been watching the argument with varying degrees of alarm. "Let Potter sit it out. If the goblet wants him that badly, it'll do something about it." Crouch's face had gone from pale to flushed. "This is outrageous. Unprecedented. The rules clearly state, rules you wrote," Harry said quietly. "For a tournament you organized. Using a goblet you were responsible for securing." He paused. "Tell me, Mr. Crouch. When did you first learn that someone had entered my name?" The question hung in the air. Crouch's flush deepened. "When it emerged from the goblet. Same as everyone else." "Really? You had no warning? No indication that the goblet's magic had been tampered with?" "Of course not. So the wards around the goblet, the ones that were supposed to prevent exactly this kind of manipulation, they just failed. Without warning. Without leaving any trace. The investigation will, you keep mentioning this investigation. Who's conducting it? When will it be complete? Will I be allowed to see the results?" Crouch's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. "The ministry will conduct its own inquiry," he said finally. "In due time. Through proper channels. In other words, no. In other words, this is not your concern. Someone entered me into a potentially fatal competition without my consent. How is that not my concern? Because you are a child. Crouch's composure finally cracked. A 14-year-old boy with delusions of importance. You are not entitled to ministry resources. You are not entitled to classified information. You are not entitled to anything except what we choose to give you. The words echoed in the sudden silence. Harry felt something shift inside him. The cold clarity he'd felt since his name emerged from the goblet crystallized into something sharper. I see, he said softly. So that's how it is. He looked around the room. At Dumbledore, who was watching him with an unreadable expression. At McGonagall, who looked troubled. At Snape, whose black eyes glittered with something that might have been interest. At Moody, whose magical eye had fixed on Crouch with an intensity that made the older man shift uncomfortably. At Crouch himself, who was breathing hard, his careful composure in ruins. You know something, Harry said. About why this happened. About who did it. And you're not going to tell me. You are being paranoid. Yes, you said. Harry's voice was cold now. Cold and hard as ice. Let me tell you what I think, Mr. Crouch. I think someone in this room knows exactly how my name got into that goblet. I think the ministry is going to bury any investigation so deep it'll never see daylight. And I think you're counting on a 14-year-old boy to just accept it. To be too scared, too ignorant, too powerless to do anything about it. He smiled again. That same sharp, unpleasant smile. You're wrong. Is that a threat, Mr. Potter? It's a promise. Harry drew himself up to his full height, which wasn't much, but something in his bearing made several of the adults take an involuntary step back. You want to hide behind rules? Fine. I'll use rules too. Every rule, every law, every regulation I can find. I'm going to find out who did this. I'm going to find out why. And when I do, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who was responsible. Crouch's face had gone pale again. You don't know what you're dealing with. No, Harry agreed. I don't. But I'm going to find out. He turned away from Crouch, facing the room at large. I'm not competing in this tournament. I don't care what the contract says. I don't care what the goblet does. Someone tried to use me as a pawn tonight, and I refuse to play along. Harry, Dumbledore began. With respect, Headmaster, you've had 13 years to tell me things I needed to know. About my parents. About Voldemort. About why I'm famous in a world I didn't know existed until I was 11. Harry's voice didn't waver. I'm done waiting for explanations that never come. I'm done trusting people who keep secrets for my own good. From now on, I find my own answers. He walked toward the door. No one moved to stop him. At the threshold, he paused and looked back at Crouch. You said I'm not entitled to ministry resources. Fine. But I am entitled to justice under wizarding law. And I'm going to get it. Crouch's face was a mask. But his hands were trembling. Harry walked out. The corridor was empty. Most of the students were probably still in the Great Hall, buzzing about what had happened. Harry could hear distant voices, the rumble of conversation, but here it was quiet. He leaned against the cold stone wall and let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. His hands were shaking. He'd just told off the head of International Magical Cooperation. He'd accused a senior ministry official of conspiracy or incompetence in front of multiple witnesses. He'd refused to compete in a magically binding contract. What the hell was he thinking? But even as the doubt crept in, something else remained. That cold clarity. That hard certainty that he'd done the right thing. Someone had entered him in this tournament. Not as a prank. Not by accident. Someone had gone to incredible lengths, tricking ancient magic, forging his name, manipulating the selection process, to force him into a competition that had killed people. Why? The most obvious answer was also the most terrifying. Voldemort. Or at least, his followers. This had the smell of a Death Eater plot, complicated, long-planned, ruthless. But how? The goblet had been guarded. Dumbledore himself had cast the age line. The security should have been impenetrable. Unless someone inside had helped. Harry's mind went back to Crouch. The man's careful composure. His immediate insistence that Harry compete. His refusal to even consider alternatives. And that flicker in his eyes when Harry had asked about the why. Crouch knew something. Harry was certain of it. The question was what? Harry. He looked up. Hermione was running toward him, her hair flying, Ron close behind. Harry, what happened? What did they say? Are you all right? I'm fine. Harry pushed off from the wall. Where's everyone else? Still in the hall. Dumbledore came back and told everyone to return to their dormitories. Hermione's eyes were searching his face. Harry, did you really refuse to compete? Yes. But the magical contract, I don't care. The words came out harder than he intended. Someone tried to trap me, Hermione. I'm not going to walk into their trap just because it's expected. Ron was staring at him with wide eyes. Mate. You basically told Crouch to stuff it. In front of everyone. He deserved it. I'm not disagreeing. Ron held up his hands. It was brilliant. The look on his face when you accused him of being complicit, you saw that? Everyone saw it. Bagman left the door open. Half the hall was watching through the crack. Harry closed his eyes. So much for keeping this quiet. What are you going to do? Hermione asked quietly. You can't just ignore the goblet's magic. It'll punish you somehow. I know. Harry opened his eyes. But I'd rather deal with magical punishment than compete in something designed to get me killed. You don't know it's designed to get you killed, I don't know it isn't. Harry started walking toward Gryffindor Tower. Someone went to a lot of trouble to enter me. They didn't do that for fun. They have a plan. And I guarantee competing in the tournament is exactly what they want me to do. Ron and Hermione exchanged glances, then hurried to catch up. So what's your plan? Ron asked. Just wait and see what happens. No. Harry's voice was grim. I'm going to find out who did this. And I'm going to make them pay. The Gryffindor common room fell silent when Harry entered. He'd expected stares. He'd expected whispers. What he hadn't expected was the standing ovation. Fred and George were on their feet, clapping wildly. Angelina Johnson and Katie Bell were cheering. Even Neville Longbottom, normally so quiet, was applauding with a broad smile. That was bloody brilliant. Fred shouted. The look on Crouch's face, like he'd swallowed a dung bomb, George added. When you accused him of being complicit, I thought Karkaroff was going to have a stroke. Harry held up his hands. It wasn't supposed to be entertainment. Entertainment? Fred looked offended. That was art, that was. Political theater of the highest order. You basically told the ministry to saw it off in front of 2 foreign schools and 3 of the most important wizarding officials in Britain. George draped an arm over Harry's shoulders. We've never been prouder. Harry shrugged him off, but couldn't quite hide a smile. I just said what I was thinking. That's what made it perfect. Angelina had pushed through the crowd. Everyone's always so careful around ministry types. Walking on eggshells, saying the right things. You just told the truth. The inconvenient truth, Katie added. That's the best kind. Harry looked around the common room. Most of the faces were friendly, excited, supportive. But he noticed a few that weren't, a cluster of upper years near the fire who were watching him with narrowed eyes. One of them stepped forward. Cormac McLagan, 6th year, built like a small mountain. Easy for you to make speeches, McLagan said. You've already got fame. What about Cedric? He earned his spot as champion. Now everyone's going to be talking about you instead of him. The common room went quiet again. Harry met McLagan's gaze steadily. Cedric's welcome to all the attention he wants. I don't want to be champion. I didn't ask for this. So you say. So I say. Harry didn't look away. If you want to believe I somehow tricked ancient magic to get my name in a potentially fatal competition against my will, go ahead. But ask yourself why anyone would do that. McLagan's jaw tightened. Glory. Fame. The prize money. I'm already famous. I hate it. And I've got plenty of gold in my vault. Harry shrugged. Try again. Then why? That's what I'm trying to find out. Harry's voice hardened. Someone entered me in this tournament. Someone with enough knowledge and power to trick the goblet of fire. Someone who wanted me, specifically, competing in tasks designed to test wizards 3 years older than me. He paused. You think I did that to myself? Fine. But if you've got a theory about who actually did it, I'm listening. McLagan had no answer. Harry nodded and turned away, heading for the stairs to the boys' dormitory. Ron and Hermione followed. The fourth-year boys' dormitory was empty except for the 3 of them. Seamus and Dean were probably still in the common room, enjoying the drama. Harry sat on his bed and stared at the wall. Harry. Hermione's voice was gentle. Are you okay? I don't know. He ran a hand through his hair. I just did that. Said all those things. In front of everyone. Regrets? He thought about it. No. I meant every word. I just wasn't planning to say them quite so publicly. Ron sat down on his own bed. What you said about Crouch. Do you really think he was involved? I don't know. Harry replayed the conversation in his mind. He knows something, though. The way he reacted when I asked about the why, there's something he's hiding. Crouch is a hard man. Hermione had begun pacing, a sure sign her brain was working overtime. He sent his own son to Azkaban during the war. Some people called him ruthless. Others said he was just doing his job. What was his son convicted of? I don't remember exactly. Something involving Death Eaters. Torturing someone, I think. Hermione frowned. I could look it up in the library. Do it. Harry lay back on his bed. I want to know everything about Bartemius Crouch. His career. His family. His enemies. If someone's using this tournament to get to me, Crouch is involved somehow. I'm sure of it. Ron and Hermione exchanged glances again. Harry, Ron said slowly. When you said you were going to make them pay, what did you mean? Harry stared at the canopy of his bed. I don't know yet, he admitted. But I'm not just going to sit here and wait for whatever they have planned. I'm going to find out who did this. And I'm going to stop them. How? I'll figure it out. Harry's voice was quiet but certain. They picked the wrong target. They think I'm just some kid who'll do whatever he's told. They're wrong. He closed his eyes. Somewhere in this castle, someone had entered his name in the goblet of fire. Someone who wanted him competing. Someone who wanted him in danger. He was going to find them. And they were going to regret it. Sleep didn't come easily. Harry lay in the dark, listening to Ron's snores and the wind outside the tower windows, his mind racing. The tournament. For champions when there should be 3. Ancient magic tricked somehow. Crouch insisting he compete. Dumbledore's careful neutrality. Moody's unexpected support. And beneath it all, the question that wouldn't stop nagging at him, why? If someone wanted him dead, there were easier ways. A curse. An accident. Poison. The tournament was elaborate, public, risky. Too many variables. Too many chances for something to go wrong. Unless death wasn't the goal. Harry sat up in bed, a thought striking him. What if they didn't want to kill him? What if they wanted something else entirely? Something that required him alive, competing, distracted by the tournament's tasks. But what? He didn't have enough information. That was the problem. He was working with fragments, guesses, intuition. He needed facts. Evidence. Proof. Tomorrow, he decided. Tomorrow he'd start digging. The library. The archives. Anything he could find about the goblet, the tournament, Crouch's history. He'd look for patterns, connections, anything that might explain what was really going on. And he'd watch. Carefully. Everyone who might be involved. Everyone who might know something. Someone in this castle had betrayed him. Had set him up for something. He was going to find out who. Harry lay back down, but this time his mind was calmer. He had a plan. It wasn't much, just the first steps of an investigation that might take months, but it was something. He closed his eyes. Sleep finally came. Breakfast the next morning was an exercise in endurance. The moment Harry walked into the great hall, conversation stopped. Heads turned. Whispers started. He could feel the weight of hundreds of stares as he made his way to the Gryffindor table. The Daily Prophet had already printed a special morning edition. Potter refuses tournament, accuses Ministry of conspiracy. Rita Skeeter's name was prominently displayed. Where did she even get the details? Hermione was scanning the article with barely contained fury. She quotes you verbatim. She couldn't have been in the antechamber. Quick quotes Quill, probably. Harry buttered a piece of toast with more force than necessary. Wouldn't be surprised if she had one hidden somewhere. This is actually pretty favorable, though. Ron had claimed his own copy. She makes you sound all heroic and rebellious. Listen, young Potter, his famous green eyes blazing with righteous fury, boldly confronted the ministry official, demanding answers that Crouch seemed unable, or unwilling, to provide. That's not what happened. Close enough, though. Ron grinned. You did look pretty furious. Harry scanned the hall. At the Slytherin table, Malfoy was holding court, probably making snide remarks. At the staff table, Dumbledore was speaking quietly with McGonagall. Crouch was notably absent. And at the door, a group of ministry wizards in official robes had just entered. Trouble, Harry muttered. The wizards made their way to the staff table. The lead one, a short, pompous-looking man with a lime green bowler hat, spoke briefly with Dumbledore, then turned to survey the hall. His eyes landed on Harry. Mr. Potter. The man's voice was magically amplified. A word, please. Harry stood slowly. And you are? The man's face flushed. I am Cornelius Fudge, Minister for Magic. You will address me with respect. A murmur ran through the hall. Harry walked toward the staff table, keeping his pace steady. Minister. He stopped a few feet away. What can I do for you? Fudge's mustache bristled. You can explain yourself, young man. This morning's prophet is full of your accusations against senior ministry officials. You've caused an international incident. I told the truth. Harry kept his voice calm. Someone entered my name in the goblet without my consent. I refused to compete. I asked questions that no one could answer. You accused Bartemius Crouch of conspiracy. I asked if he knew who entered my name, how they did it, and why they targeted me. He couldn't answer any of those questions. Harry shrugged. I didn't accuse him of anything. I asked questions. Questions designed to undermine public confidence in the ministry. Questions designed to find out who's trying to kill me. The words hung in the air. Fudge's face had gone from red to purple. No one is trying to kill you. You are being dramatic and paranoid. Really? Harry tilted his head. The Triwizard Tournament has a death rate. That's a matter of public record. Someone entered me in that tournament without my knowledge or consent. What other conclusion should I draw? Fudge sputtered. The other Ministry wizards shifted uncomfortably. You will compete, Fudge finally managed. The magical contract has no power over someone who didn't consent to it. Harry had done some reading last night, pulling old books from the common room shelves. Binding contracts require informed consent in wizarding law. I didn't know my name was being entered. I didn't agree to the terms. The contract is void. The goblet's magic is ancient and poorly understood. No one can tell me exactly what will happen if I refuse. Speculation isn't law, Minister. Fudge's mouth opened and closed. He clearly hadn't expected legal arguments from a 14-year-old. The Ministry's position is clear, he said finally. You will compete in the tournament. If you refuse, there will be consequences. What consequences? That remains to be determined. So I'm being threatened with undefined punishment for refusing to participate in something I never agreed to. Harry nodded slowly. That sounds like coercion, Minister. I wonder what the Wizengamot would say about that. Complete silence fell over the great hall. Fudge's face had gone pale. Are you threatening to bring this before the Wizengamot? I'm stating my options. Harry kept his voice pleasant. Someone violated my rights by entering me in this tournament. The Ministry's response has been to demand I compete anyway and threaten me when I refuse. That seems like something the Wizengamot should know about. You can't possibly, a child, addressing the Wizengamot, any citizen of magical Britain can petition the Wizengamot for redress of grievances. It's in the founding charter. Harry had found that in a dusty old book in the common room, one that looked like it hadn't been opened in decades. I'll admit I'm not sure of the exact procedure, but I'm sure I can find out. Fudge took a step back. The other Ministry wizards were looking at each other with expressions ranging from shock to grudging respect. This isn't over, Potter. Fudge's voice had gone cold. You think you can embarrass the Ministry and face no consequences? You're wrong. I don't want to embarrass anyone. Harry's voice was steady. I want answers. Who entered my name? How did they do it? Why did they target me? If the Ministry can answer those questions, I'll drop my petition. Fudge stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned on his heel and strode out of the hall, his entourage hurrying to keep up. Harry watched them go. Mr. Potter. Dumbledore's voice was quiet but carried clearly. A word in my office, please. The gargoyle leaped aside as Dumbledore spoke the password, fizzing whiz-bees, and Harry followed the headmaster up the spiral staircase. Dumbledore's office was as cluttered as ever, full of spinning silver instruments and sleeping portraits. Fawkes, the phoenix, trilled softly from his perch. Dumbledore sat behind his desk. Harry remained standing. That was impressive, Dumbledore said after a moment. Your knowledge of wizarding law is better than I expected. I found some books in the common room. Ah. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. The joys of Gryffindor's modest library collection. Though I suspect Ms. Granger may have helped point you in the right direction. Harry didn't confirm or deny. Harry. Dumbledore's voice grew serious. What you're attempting is dangerous. Cornelius Fudge is not a man who forgives public embarrassment. And Bartemius Crouch, whatever else he may be, is a formidable enemy. He's already my enemy. Harry met Dumbledore's eyes. Someone entered my name in that goblet. Until I know who, everyone's a suspect. Even me. The question hung in the air. Did you do it? Harry asked quietly. No. Did you know it was going to happen? No. Do you know who did? No. Dumbledore sighed. Though I have suspicions. Share them. I cannot. Not yet. My suspicions are just that, suspicions. Acting on them prematurely could alert the true culprit and put you in greater danger. Harry felt his jaw tighten. With respect, Headmaster, that's exactly the kind of answer I've been getting my whole life. Trust the adults. Let them handle it. Don't ask questions. Harry, I trusted adults to handle Quirrell. They didn't notice Voldemort was possessing him for a year. I trusted adults to handle the Chamber of Secrets. They almost got Ginny killed. I trusted adults to handle Sirius Black. He's still a wanted man because no one will listen to the truth. Harry's voice was hard. I'm done trusting adults who keep secrets for my own good. Dumbledore was silent for a long moment. You have grown, he said finally. More than I realized. The boy who came to Hogwarts 3 years ago would never have spoken to me this way. The boy who came to Hogwarts 3 years ago didn't know that adults lie. That they hide things. That they make mistakes and never admit them. Harry shook his head. I'm not that boy anymore. No. Dumbledore's voice was sad. I suppose you're not. He stood, moving to the window to gaze out at the grounds. I will tell you this much, he said. I believe the person who entered your name in the goblet is here at Hogwarts. I believe they did so as part of a larger plan, one that likely involves bringing you to harm. And I believe that plan has something to do with Voldemort. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. You think he's behind this? I think his followers are. Whether he is personally directing them. Dumbledore shook his head. That I cannot say. Then help me find them. I cannot act openly without proof. But I can tell you this, watch everyone. Trust no one you haven't known for years. And be very, very careful around Alastor Moody. Harry frowned. Moody? He was the only one who supported me last night. Precisely. Dumbledore turned back to face him. Alastor and I have been friends for decades. I know him better than almost anyone. And the man I saw last night was not quite the Alastor I know. You think someone's impersonating him? I think something is wrong. I do not yet know what. Dumbledore's eyes were grave. Constant vigilance, Harry. That is Alastor's motto. Perhaps you should adopt it as well. Harry nodded slowly. I'll be careful. Good. Dumbledore sat back down. Now. The matter of your Wizengamot petition. You should know that filing such a petition will make you powerful enemies. It will also make you some unexpected allies. Politics in our world is complicated. I'm not trying to be political. I just want answers. Wanting answers is political, Harry. Everything is, in the end. Dumbledore sighed. I cannot stop you from filing. Nor would I, truthfully. But I would ask you to consider carefully who you trust. Some who offer help will have their own agendas. Everyone has agendas. Harry moved toward the door. At least this way, I'll know what mine is. He left without waiting for a response. The library was quiet in the late morning, most students still at breakfast or in their first classes. Harry had a free period, one of the few advantages of the tournament chaos. Hermione was already waiting at their usual table, surrounded by a fortress of books. I found some things, she said without preamble. About Crouch. About the tournament. About magical contracts in general. Tell me. First, Bartemius Crouch Sr. was head of magical law enforcement during the war against you-know-who. He was known for being ruthless, authorized Aurors to use unforgivable curses against suspected Death Eaters. Sent dozens to Azkaban, sometimes with very little evidence. Including his own son. Yes. Hermione pulled out a yellowed newspaper clipping. Bartemius Crouch Jr. was convicted of torturing Frank and Alice Longbottom with the Cruciatus curse. Along with 3 others, Bellatrix, Rodolphius, and Rabastan Lestrange. Harry felt his stomach lurch. The Longbottoms. Neville's parents? Yes. They were tortured into insanity. They're still alive, apparently, but they don't recognize anyone. Not even their own son. Harry sat down heavily. He'd known Neville's parents were gone somehow. Neville lived with his grandmother, but he'd never known the details. Crouch Jr. died in Azkaban, Hermione continued. A year after his conviction. His mother died around the same time. Some people said Crouch Sr. worked himself half to death after that, trying to bury his grief. Or trying to bury something else. Harry thought about the look in Crouch's eyes last night. What about the tournament? That's where it gets interesting. Hermione pulled out another book, this one ancient and leather-bound. The Triwizard Tournament was established in 1294. The Goblet of Fire was created specifically to select champions. It's supposed to read the magical signature of anyone who submits their name and choose the most worthy. So someone would have needed my magical signature to enter me. Not exactly. The goblet chooses from names written on parchment. But to make it accept a 4th school, that would have required powerful magic. Confunding the goblet, maybe, or some kind of complex enchantment. Can the goblet be confunded? According to this book, no. It's supposed to be immune to such tampering. Hermione frowned. But clearly someone found a way. Which means either the book is wrong, or they used something more powerful than a simple confundus charm. Harry leaned back in his chair, thinking. Someone with access to the goblet. Someone with enough magical knowledge to trick ancient protections. Someone who specifically wanted Harry competing. What about the magical contract, he asked. Is there any way out of it? That's complicated. Hermione shuffled through her notes. Binding magical contracts are real, they're used for things like marriage bonds, trade agreements, oaths of fealty. Breaking them can have serious consequences. Loss of magic, sometimes even death. But I didn't agree to this contract. Exactly. That's the legal argument. Hermione's eyes lit up. Contracts require consent. You didn't consent. Ergo, no contract. The goblet might not see it that way. The goblet is a magical object, not a court of law. It operates on its own rules. She pulled out yet another book. But there's precedent for contesting binding magical contracts. In 1743, a wizard named Aldous Thistlethwaite was entered into a duel contract by an enemy who forged his signature. He refused to participate, and when the contract tried to punish him, he challenged it directly. Challenged it how? He made his own oath. A counter-oath, swearing that he had not consented and demanding justice against the one who had violated his will. Hermione's voice dropped. The magic accepted his oath. It punished the forger instead. Harry sat up straighter. A counter-oath. It's risky. If the magic judges that you're lying, that you actually did consent somehow, the punishment rebounds on you. But if you're telling the truth, then whoever entered my name pays the price instead. The idea was terrifying. And tempting. How do I do it? Harry asked. I'm not sure. The book doesn't give specifics. Hermione was already reaching for another volume. But there must be records somewhere. Old ritual texts, maybe. Or, the restricted section. They looked at each other. I'll need a note from a professor, Hermione said slowly. Moody owes me a favor. Harry stood up. Or at least, he supported me last night. That's close enough. Harry, Dumbledore said to be careful around him. I know. But if he's really an imposter, getting close to him might help me figure out who. Harry gathered his bag. Besides, if he's trying to manipulate me, having me owe him a favor plays right into his hands. He'll sign the note. Hermione didn't look convinced, but she nodded. Be careful. I always am. Moody's office was in a tower on the 4th floor, up a narrow spiral staircase that creaked ominously with every step. Harry knocked on the heavy wooden door and waited. Enter. The voice was gruff, suspicious. Harry opened the door. The office was dim, curtains drawn, lit only by a few flickering candles. Moody sat behind a cluttered desk, his magical eye spinning lazily before fixing on Harry. Potter. Was wondering when you'd show up. Harry stepped inside. Professor. Don't call me that. Makes me feel old. Moody gestured to a chair. Sit. You've got questions. Harry sat, keeping his movements casual even as every sense screamed alert. You supported me last night. I wanted to thank you. Don't thank me. I did what made sense. The magical eye swiveled, scanning the walls. Someone went to a lot of trouble to put your name in that goblet. Only an idiot would play along without knowing why. Do you know why? Got theories. Moody's gnarled hands wrapped around a hip flask. None I'm ready to share. Constant vigilance, Potter. You learn to keep your theories close until you've got proof. What would count as proof? Caught them in the act. Veritaserum confession. Pensive memory. Moody took a long drink from his flask. Course, all of those can be faked if you're clever enough. Real proof is rare. Best you can usually do is weight of evidence. Harry filed that away. I need a favor. Do you now? A signed note. For the restricted section. There's research I need to do. Moody's magical eye fixed on him with unsettling intensity. Research into what? Counter-oaths. Ways to contest a binding magical contract. Ah. Something that might have been approval flickered across Moody's scarred face. Fighting back. Good. Too many wizards just accept what happens to them. Roll over and die. Not you, though. You've got fight in you. He pulled a piece of parchment from a drawer and scrawled something on it. Here. Signed permission to access materials on magical contracts and oath magic. He handed it over. Word of advice, Potter. Be careful what oaths you swear. Magic takes them seriously. More seriously than most wizards realize. I'll be careful. Will you? Moody leaned back in his chair. You struck me as the type to charge in without thinking. Running off to face a basilisk. Chasing after escaped prisoners. Not exactly cautious behavior. I've learned. Have you? The magical eye was still fixed on him. Tell me, Potter. If you found out who entered your name in that goblet, right now, tonight, what would you do? Harry thought about it. Depends on who it was. Humor me. Let's say it was someone you trusted. Someone close to you. What then? I'd want to know why. What their plan was. What they hoped to gain. And if they wouldn't tell you, then I'd make sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. How? Harry met Moody's eyes, both of them. Whatever it took. A long moment of silence. Then Moody laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound, without much humor in it. Good answer. He waved a hand dismissively. Go on, then. Do your research. Learn your oaths. But remember what I said, magic takes these things seriously. Swear something you can't fulfill, and you'll pay the price. Harry stood. Thank you, Professor. Moody. Just Moody. The magical eye followed him to the door. And Potter? Watch your back. You've made some powerful enemies in the last 24 hours. Not all of them wear ministry robes. Harry paused at the threshold. Is that a warning? It's advice. Take it or leave it. Moody turned back to his desk. Now get out. I've got papers to grade. Harry left, the signed permission slip clutched in his hand. As he descended the spiral staircase, he couldn't shake the feeling that Moody, or whoever was wearing Moody's face, was playing a very different game than anyone realized. The restricted section was everything Harry had imagined and more. Rows upon rows of ancient books, some chained to their shelves, others humming with barely contained magic. The air smelled of dust and old leather and something else, something that made the hair on his arms stand up. Madame Pants had examined Moody's note with deep suspicion, but eventually permitted him entry. 1 hour, Mr. Potter. And if you damage anything, you'll answer to me. Harry had no intention of damaging anything. He had a specific goal. He found the section on oaths and bindings near the back, where the shadows seemed deeper and the books looked older. Some of the titles were in languages he didn't recognize. Others were in English, but the words seemed to writhe when he looked at them too long. He pulled out a heavy tome bound in black leather, Magic Most Oath, a compendium of binding traditions. The book was dense, full of archaic language and complex diagrams. Harry skimmed through chapters on marriage oaths, fealty bonds, debt contracts. Finally, near the back, he found what he was looking for. Counter-oaths and challenges to binding magic. The text was faded but legible. Harry read slowly, making sure he understood every word. When a wizard is bound by an oath or contract to which they did not consent, they may invoke the ancient right of counter-oath. By swearing upon their magic that they did not consent, and naming the party responsible for the violation, they may transfer the burden of the binding to that party. The counter-oath must be specific. It must name the violation, the violated, and the violator. It must be sworn in the presence of witnesses and sealed with blood freely given. Warning: the magic that governs oaths is ancient and inflexible. A counter-oath sworn falsely will rebound upon the swearer with threefold force. Only those certain of their innocence should attempt this ritual. Harry's heart was pounding. This was it. This was how he could fight back. But there was a problem. The oath required naming the violator. Harry didn't know who had entered his name. He had suspicions, Crouch, or someone working with him, but no proof. He couldn't swear a counter-oath against someone he only suspected. He kept reading. In cases where the violator is unknown, a modified form of the counter-oath may be employed. The swearer names the violation and the violated, then swears to discover and punish the violator within a specified time. This transfers the binding's power to the swearer's quest for justice, protecting them from the original contract's punishment so long as they pursue their oath with dedication. Warning: the modified counter-oath carries its own burden. If the swearer fails to identify and punish the violator within the specified time, their own magic is forfeit. Harry sat back, mind racing. He could do it. Swear an oath to find whoever entered his name and bring them to justice. It would protect him from the goblet's punishment. It would give him legal standing to investigate. And if he failed, he'd lose his magic. Was it worth the risk? He thought about his life. About the years at the Dursleys, the discovery of magic, the wonder and terror of the wizarding world. Magic was everything to him. The idea of losing it was worse than death. But the alternative was competing in a tournament designed to kill him, playing into the hands of someone who wanted him dead or worse. No. He wouldn't be a pawn. He wouldn't let someone else control his fate. He'd take the risk. That evening, Harry gathered his closest allies in an empty classroom on the 3rd floor. Hermione, Ron, and, to their surprise, Neville Longbottom. "I want to be here," Neville said when Ron raised an eyebrow. "What happened to Harry? It's wrong. And I want to help." Harry nodded. "Thanks, Neville. That means a lot." He explained what he'd found in the restricted section. The counter-oath. The requirements. The risks. You're going to swear an oath to find whoever did this? Hermione's voice was careful, neutral. And if you fail, I lose my magic. Yes. Harry, that's insane. It's necessary. Harry's voice was calm. If I don't do something, the goblet's contract will punish me for not competing. This way, I protect myself while I investigate. It buys me time. But if you can't find them, then I'll deal with that when it happens. Harry looked at each of them in turn. I'm not asking you to approve. I'm asking you to witness. The oath needs witnesses. Ron and Neville exchanged glances. Hermione was shaking her head. There has to be another way, she said. We could go to Dumbledore. Dumbledore told me to be careful and trust no one. He's not going to act without proof. Harry's jaw set. I'm tired of waiting for adults to solve my problems. I'm doing this. A long silence. I'll witness. Neville's voice was quiet but firm. Whoever did this to you, they're the kind of person who would torture innocent people for information. I know what that kind of darkness looks like. I want to see them stopped. Harry met his eyes. Saw the pain there, and the steel beneath it. Thank you. Ron sighed. In for a Canute, in for a galleon. I'll witness too. Hermione looked like she wanted to argue more, but finally nodded. Fine. But I'm going to help you investigate every step of the way. We're going to find whoever did this. We're going to make this work. Harry felt something warm in his chest. I know. He pulled out the notes he'd copied from the book and began preparing the ritual. The oath was sworn at midnight, in the empty classroom, by wand light. Harry stood in the center of a circle drawn in chalk, his 3 friends at the edges as witnesses. He held a small silver knife in one hand. I, Harry James Potter, do swear upon my magic and my life. The words felt heavy in his mouth. The air seemed to thicken around him. Someone has entered my name into the goblet of fire without my knowledge or consent. Someone has attempted to bind me to a contract I never agreed to. This is a violation of my will and my rights as a wizard. The chalk circle began to glow faintly. I swear to discover who has done this. I swear to learn why. I swear to bring them to justice by any lawful means, or, if lawful means fail, by the ancient right of magical redress. The glow intensified. Harry could feel magic building around him, pressing against his skin. I swear this upon my magic. I name as my target the one who entered my name in the goblet, specifically, Bartemius Crouch, who by authority or negligence allowed this violation to occur. I give myself 1 year and 1 day to fulfill this oath. He drew the knife across his palm. Blood welled up, dark in the dim light. By blood freely given, I seal this oath. Let magic witness. Let magic judge. Let magic act. He let 3 drops of blood fall onto the chalk circle. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the glow flared brilliant white, so bright Harry had to close his eyes. He felt magic surge through him, ancient magic, older than Hogwarts, older than the Ministry, older than anything he'd ever touched. It examined him. Weighed him. Found him, worthy. The light faded. The chalk circle had burned into the stone floor, leaving permanent marks. Harry's cut palm tingled, then healed, leaving only a thin white scar. And something had changed inside him. His magic felt different. Sharper. More focused. Like a weapon that had been honed to a razor edge. He opened his eyes. His 3 friends were staring at him with expressions ranging from awe to terror. Harry, Hermione whispered. Your eyes. What about them? They're glowing. Harry looked down at his hands. Faint traces of golden light flickered across his skin, then faded. It worked, he said. The oath was accepted. Ron let out a breath. Bloody hell. Neville just nodded, his eyes bright with something Harry recognized as hope. Harry looked at the burned circle on the floor. At the scar on his palm. At his friends, who had witnessed him swear away his magic on a desperate gamble. He had 1 year and 1 day. 1 year to find out who had entered his name in the goblet. 1 year to discover why. 1 year to bring them to justice. And if he failed, he'd lose everything. Harry smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Let's get started. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, the weight of words. Harry woke to sunlight streaming through the dormitory windows and the peculiar sensation that his blood had been replaced with liquid lightning. He lay still for a moment, staring at the scarlet canopy above his bed, taking inventory. His body felt the same scrawny frame, same unruly hair falling into his eyes, same lightning scar that prickled occasionally when he thought about it too hard. But beneath the surface, something had fundamentally shifted. His magic hummed. That was the only way to describe it. Before last night, his magic had been like a tool he picked up when needed, a wand, a spell, a moment of intent. Now it felt like an extension of himself, constantly present, constantly aware. He could sense the wards around the dormitory, ancient protections woven into the very stones of Hogwarts. He could feel the faint magical signatures of his sleeping roommates. He could almost taste the residue of centuries of spellwork soaked into every surface. It was overwhelming. And exhilarating. Harry sat up slowly, careful not to wake the others. Ron's snores continued unabated. Seamus was muttering something in his sleep about Quidditch. Dean's bed curtains were drawn tight. Neville's bed was empty, already made. Harry checked his watch. 6:30. Early, even by his standards. He dressed quietly and made his way down to the common room. Neville was sitting by the fire, a cup of tea in his hands, staring into the flames. He looked up when Harry approached. Couldn't sleep either. Harry shook his head. Too wired. The magic. I felt it too. When you made the oath. Neville's voice was soft. It was like standing next to a lightning strike. The hair on my arm stood up for hours afterward. Harry sat down in the chair opposite him. I didn't mean to, don't apologize. Neville set down his tea. I wanted to be there. What happened to you? It's not right. Someone tried to use you as a pawn. You're fighting back. His jaw tightened. I wish I had that kind of courage. You do. The words came out before Harry could think about them. You faced down Malfoy first year when he tried to take my Remembrall. You came with us to protect the stone. You've got more courage than you give yourself credit for. Neville's ears went red. That's different. That was just, doing what needed to be done. That's exactly what courage is. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the fire crackling between them. Can I ask you something? Neville said finally. Go ahead. Last night, when you were reading about Crouch's history, Hermione mentioned the Longbottoms. My parents. Neville's voice was steady, but his hands had tightened around his teacup. Did she tell you what happened to them? Harry nodded slowly. She said they were tortured. By Death Eaters. That they're still alive, but they don't. They don't recognize me. Neville finished the sentence without flinching. I visit them every Christmas. Mom gives me sweet wrappers. She collects them, thinks they're treasures. Dad just stares at the wall. He paused. Crouch's son was one of the ones who did it. Harry felt cold. Neville, I didn't know, I know you didn't. That's why I'm telling you. Neville met his eyes. Crouch Sr. sent his own son to Azkaban for what he did to my parents. Some people call him a hero for that. Justice above blood. His voice hardened. But I've read the trial transcripts. Gran has copies. Crouch Jr. was screaming that he was innocent, that he'd been framed, that his father knew the truth. Crouch Sr. just sat there and watched them drag him away. You think he was innocent? I think something was wrong with that trial. It lasted less than a day. The evidence was all circumstantial, they were found at the scene, they had Death Eater connections, that was enough. Neville shook his head. I'm not saying Crouch Jr. didn't do it. The Lestranges definitely did. But the way it was handled, it felt like Crouch Sr. was more interested in looking tough than finding the truth. Harry thought about that. About Crouch's behavior at the champion selection. His immediate insistence that Harry compete. His careful non-answers to every question. He's hiding something, Harry said. I'm certain of it. Then find out what. Neville leaned forward. Not just for yourself. For everyone he's hurt. For all the people who never got real justice because it was more convenient to sweep things under the rug. Harry looked at his friend, really looked. The round face and slightly nervous demeanor were still there, but beneath them was something harder. A core of steel forged in years of loss and grief. I will, Harry promised. Whatever it takes. Breakfast was an exercise in controlled chaos. The great hall was buzzing with conversation when Harry arrived, and it only intensified when people noticed him. Yesterday's prophet had spread his confrontation with Fudge across the entire wizarding world. Today's edition had doubled down. Potter's Oath, Dark Magic or Desperate Measure. The headline screamed across the front page, accompanied by a grainy photograph of Harry that made him look vaguely deranged. How did they find out? Hermione had the paper spread across her plate, her breakfast forgotten. The oath was private. We were the only witnesses. Someone talked. Harry scanned the article. Rita Skeeter's byline, of course. Or someone was watching. Watching how? We checked the room for Ms. Granger. Professor McGonagall's voice cut through the morning noise. She was standing behind them, her expression unreadable. Mr. Potter. Mr. Weasley. Mr. Longbottom. The headmaster wishes to see you. Immediately. Harry exchanged glances with his friends. All of us. All of you. McGonagall's lips were pressed into a thin line. Now, if you please. Dumbledore's office was crowded when they arrived. The headmaster sat behind his desk, looking older than Harry had ever seen him. McGonagall took her place standing behind his chair. Snape lurked in the corner, his black eyes glittering with something that might have been satisfaction. Mad-Eye Moody leaned against the wall near the door, his magical eye spinning slowly. And in the center of the room, sitting in a conjured chair like he owned the place, was Cornelius Fudge. Ah, Mr. Potter. The minister's voice was silky, dangerous. So good of you to join us. Harry didn't sit in the chair that appeared next to Fudge. He remained standing, his friends flanking him. Minister. Headmaster. Professors. He kept his voice neutral. What's this about? I think you know. Fudge held up the morning's prophet. This oath you've sworn. This public challenge to ministry authority. I didn't challenge the ministry. I swore to find out who entered my name in the goblet. That's not a crime. It is when you name a senior ministry official as your target. Fudge's composure cracked. You've accused Bartemius Crouch of conspiracy. You've called into question the integrity of the entire Department of International Magical Cooperation. I've done nothing of the kind. I named Crouch as someone who either authorized or allowed the violation of my rights to occur. That's a statement of fact, not an accusation. Don't play word games with me, boy. I'm not playing anything. Harry's voice hardened. Someone entered my name in that goblet. Someone with access and knowledge that ordinary students don't have. Crouch was responsible for the goblet's security. Either he failed in that responsibility, or he was involved in the violation. Those are the only two options. Fudge's face had gone purple. You can't possibly, Minister. Dumbledore's quiet voice cut through the tension. Perhaps we should discuss the legal situation before continuing this debate. Fudge subsided, still glaring at Harry. Dumbledore turned to Snape. Severus. You've examined the oath Mr. Potter swore. I have. Snape stepped forward, his robes billowing. It is genuine. Ancient magic, properly invoked. The binding is absolute. And the consequences if he fails? Loss of his magic. Possibly his life, depending on how the ancient powers choose to interpret failure. Snape's voice was clinical, detached. The oath is irrevocable. Mr. Potter has committed himself to this course, whatever the outcome. Fudge looked triumphant. Then he's trapped himself. If he can't prove his accusations against Crouch, the oath doesn't require proof of accusation. Snape cut him off with evident satisfaction. It requires that Potter discover who violated his rights and bring them to justice. If Crouch is innocent, Potter simply needs to find the actual culprit. The oath will be satisfied. But he named Crouch specifically, as a target of investigation, not as the confirmed violator. Snape's lip curled. Mr. Potter was surprisingly precise in his wording. The oath allows him to investigate Crouch without committing to Crouch's guilt. Harry kept his face neutral, but inwardly he was relieved. He'd spent hours with Hermione crafting the exact language of the oath, trying to give himself as much flexibility as possible. It was good to know they'd succeeded. Fudge turned to Dumbledore. This is unacceptable. We cannot have students swearing ancient oaths and naming ministry officials as targets. It sets a dangerous precedent. I agree it's unusual. Dumbledore's voice was mild. But Mr. Potter was placed in an unusual situation. Someone entered him into a dangerous competition without his consent. His response, while dramatic, is legally valid. Legally valid doesn't mean acceptable. Perhaps not. But it does mean we cannot simply override it. Dumbledore steepled his fingers. The oath is sworn. The magic is binding. Our options are limited. Then what do you suggest? I suggest we let Mr. Potter conduct his investigation. Under supervision, of course. With full cooperation from the Ministry. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled slightly. After all, Minister, if there's nothing to hide, the investigation will clear everyone's name. Including Mr. Crouch's. Fudge sputtered. You can't seriously expect the Ministry to cooperate with a 14-year-old's fishing expedition. I expect the Ministry to demonstrate its commitment to justice. Dumbledore's voice hardened almost imperceptibly. Unless there's a reason you prefer this investigation not proceed? The implication hung in the air. Fudge's face went through several interesting colors before settling on an unhealthy pale. Fine. Fine. Investigate all you want. But if this turns into a witch hunt against loyal Ministry servants, it won't. Harry spoke before Dumbledore could. I'm not interested in politics, Minister. I just want to know who entered my name and why. Give me that, and I'll be satisfied. And Crouch? If he's innocent, my investigation will prove it. If he's not. Harry shrugged. Then he gets what he deserves. Fudge stared at him for a long moment. Then he stood abruptly. This isn't over, Potter. The Ministry doesn't forget its enemies. Neither do I. Fudge swept out of the office, his entourage hurrying to keep up. In the silence that followed, Harry became aware that everyone was staring at him. Well, Moody said finally. That was entertaining. Dumbledore dismissed the others but asked Harry to stay behind. When they were alone, the headmaster's grandfatherly demeanor dropped slightly. He looked tired. Worried. Harry. That was well played, but dangerous. Fudge is not a man to cross lightly. He crossed me first. True. Dumbledore sighed. But Fudge has the power of the ministry behind him. He can make your life very difficult. He already has. Harry moved to the window, looking out at the grounds. My whole life, I've been a tool for other people's plans. The boy who lived. The chosen one. Whatever prophecy or destiny everyone seems to know about except me. He turned back to face Dumbledore. I'm done with that. From now on, I make my own choices. Even if those choices put you in danger. I'm always in danger. At least this way, I'm in danger for my own reasons. Dumbledore was silent for a long moment. You've changed, he said finally. The boy I remember from first year was brave, yes, but also trusting. Willing to let others guide him. This Harry. He shook his head. This Harry is harder. Colder. Maybe that's what it takes to survive. Harry met the old man's eyes. You told me to watch everyone. To trust no one. I'm taking your advice. I didn't mean, what did you mean, then? Harry's voice was soft but relentless. You've been watching over me since I was a baby. Monitoring my life. Making sure I was in the right place at the right time. Why? Dumbledore's face went very still. There are things I cannot tell you yet, Harry. Things that would put you in greater danger if you knew them. More secrets. More lies of omission. Harry laughed without humor. Do you see now why I stopped trusting adults? Every time I ask a question, I get the same answer. Not yet. Not safe. Just trust us. Harry, I'll find out the truth on my own. About the goblet. About Crouch. About everything. Harry walked toward the door. You can either help me or stay out of my way. Those are your options. He paused at the threshold. One more thing. You said something was wrong with Moody. That he wasn't quite himself. What did you mean? Dumbledore hesitated. It was a feeling. Nothing concrete. Your feelings have been pretty accurate in the past. Harry looked back. If you figure out what's wrong with him, let me know. Until then, I'll be watching him. Along with everyone else. He left without waiting for a response. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of classes and whispered conversations. Harry sat through herbology and charms without really paying attention. His mind was elsewhere, turning over the puzzle pieces he'd gathered. Crouch was hiding something. That was certain. Someone had tricked the goblet, someone with access and expertise. Moody was acting strange, but had supported Harry's defiance. Fudge was more interested in protecting the Ministry's image than finding the truth. And underneath it all, the shadow of Voldemort loomed. Dumbledore was certain this was connected to the Dark Lord somehow. But how? Harry was still puzzling over this when he entered the library after lunch and found someone waiting at his usual table. She was blonde, with sharp features and cool gray eyes. Her Slytherin robes were immaculate, her posture perfect. She was reading a heavy tome on wizarding law and didn't look up when Harry approached. Potter. Her voice was neutral, neither friendly nor hostile. Sit. Harry didn't move. Do I know you? Daphne Greengrass. She still didn't look up. 4th year. Slytherin. I've been in your classes for 3 years. Right. Harry vaguely remembered her, always in the back, never participating, never drawing attention. What do you want? Now she looked up. Her eyes were calculating, assessing. I want to talk business. Sit down. You're making a scene. Harry glanced around. A few students at nearby tables were watching with undisguised curiosity. He sat. Better. Daphne closed her book. I watched your little performance last night. And this morning. Very impressive. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I know. That's what made it impressive. She leaned forward slightly. Most people in your situation would have caved. Gone along with the tournament. Complained privately but complied publicly. You didn't. I don't see what that has to do with you. It has everything to do with me. Daphne's voice dropped. I'm a Slytherin, Potter. Do you know what that means? Green robes and superiority complexes. A flicker of something, amusement, crossed her face. It means I'm surrounded by the children of Death Eaters. Malfoy. Crabbe. Goyle. Not. Every day, I watch them posture and scheme and wait for their master to return. She paused. And it means I have to be very, very careful about which side I choose. Harry studied her. You're not a Death Eater. My family has always been neutral. Purebloods who keep their heads down and survive. We didn't join the Dark Lord the first time. We won't join him if he returns. Her jaw tightened. But neutrality is getting harder. The dark families are pushing for commitment. The light families don't trust anyone who isn't vocally opposed. Caught in the middle are families like mine. And you think I can help with that? I think you just made yourself the most interesting player on the board. Daphne's eyes were intense. You challenged the ministry. You swore an ancient oath. You refused to be a pawn. That takes power, and not just magical power. I'm a 14-year-old Gryffindor with no political connections. You're the boy who lived. You have the ear of Dumbledore. You just publicly humiliated the Minister for Magic. Daphne smiled slightly. Political connections are built, Potter. You're building them right now, whether you realize it or not. Harry was starting to understand. You want an alliance. I want options. My family needs options. She pulled out a piece of parchment and slid it across the table. This is a list of families who might support your investigation. Neutral parties who have no love for Fudge or Crouch. Some of them owe debts to the Greengrass family. I can arrange introductions. Harry looked at the list. Names he didn't recognize, some with brief notes beside them. He didn't touch it. What do you want in return? Recognition. If you win this fight, and you might, I want my family remembered as supporters. Not Death Eaters. Not collaborators. Allies. And if I lose? Then I'll deny we ever had this conversation. Nothing personal. Daphne shrugged. That's politics, Potter. Everyone hedges their bets. Harry considered. It was obviously a calculated move on her part. She was using him just as much as she was offering to help him. But why tell me this directly? Why not just approach through intermediaries? Because I wanted you to know it was me. Something shifted in Daphne's expression. I'm tired of hiding. Tired of playing neutral while monsters circle. You stood up in front of everyone and said no. That took courage. She paused. I want to see what happens when someone with courage actually has a chance to change things. Harry held her gaze for a long moment. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. Daphne stood, gathering her books. One more thing. As a gesture of good faith. She leaned close, her voice barely above a whisper. Moody isn't Moody. I don't know who he is, but the real Mad-Eye Moody has a very distinctive magical signature. The man teaching defense doesn't match. Harry's blood went cold. How do you know what Moody's signature looks like? My father met him once, years ago. It left an impression. Daphne straightened. Do with that information what you will. She walked away without looking back. Harry stared at the list of names she'd left behind. After a moment, he picked it up and slipped it into his bag. The afternoon brought defense against the dark arts. Harry walked into the classroom with every sense on high alert. If Daphne was right, if the man teaching this class wasn't really Moody, then Harry had been talking to an imposter. Had been given permission to access the restricted section by an imposter. Had revealed his plans to an imposter. Not good. The fake Moody was at the front of the classroom when Harry arrived, his magical eye spinning lazily. It fixed on Harry as he entered. Potter. Good. Take your seat. Harry sat near the back, between Ron and Hermione. He'd filled them in on Daphne's warning during lunch. They'd agreed to watch and wait. Today, Moody said, we're going to discuss something a bit different. Not spells or curses, but strategy. The art of magical combat. He stumped to the front of his desk and sat on it, his wooden legs sticking out at an odd angle. Most wizards think of dueling as trading spells. Curse, counter-curse, shield, attack. Very neat. Very orderly. His scarred face twisted into something like contempt. Most wizards are idiots. He pulled out his wand and, without warning, sent a jet of red light at Dean Thomas. Dean yelped and dove sideways. The stunner splashed against the wall. Thomas. What just happened? You attacked me. And what did you do about it? I dodged. Exactly. Moody nodded approvingly. You didn't try to cast a shield charm. You didn't try to counter-curse. You moved. That's instinct. That's survival. His eye swiveled across the room. In a real fight, there's no time to think. Your first spell needs to be coming out of your wand before your enemy finishes their incantation. Your second spell needs to be ready before the first one lands. And if you can't cast fast enough, you move. Harry watched the fake Moody carefully. The man's teaching style was compelling, practical, experienced, exactly what you'd expect from a legendary auror. If he was an imposter, he was a very good one. Now. Who can tell me the 3 most important factors in magical combat? Hermione's hand went up. Granger. Power, precision, and speed? Wrong. Moody shook his head. Those are important, but not most important. Anyone else? Silence. Potter. Take a guess. Harry thought about it. Information. Position. Will. The fake Moody's magical eye fixed on him with unsettling intensity. Explain. Information means knowing what you're facing. A wizard who knows his enemy's fighting style, their favorite spells, their weaknesses, that wizard has an advantage. Position means controlling the environment. High ground, cover, escape routes. Will means. Harry paused. Wanting to win more than you want to survive. Being willing to do what's necessary. The classroom was silent. Correct. The fake Moody's voice was soft. Where did you learn that? Experience. Harry held the man's gaze. I've been fighting for my life since I was 11. You learn things. Indeed you do. The fake Moody turned back to the class, but Harry noticed his hands were tighter on his wand than before. Potter's right. The 3 factors that determine victory aren't about power. They're about knowing your enemy, controlling the battlefield, and having the determination to see things through. He launched into a lecture about reconnaissance and positioning. Harry took notes, but his mind was elsewhere. The fake Moody knew things. Taught things that the real Moody probably would have taught. Either the imposter had studied his target extensively, or the imposter was someone who had fought alongside the real Moody. Someone who knew his methods intimately. A Death Eater, perhaps. One who had faced Moody in the war and learned his tactics the hard way. Harry filed the thought away for later. After class, the fake Moody called him back. Potter. A word. Harry waved Ron and Hermione on, promising to catch up. He approached the desk warily. That was good thinking, the fake Moody said. About the 3 factors. Where'd you really learn that? Books. Observation. Getting beaten up by things that should have killed me. The magical I was doing that thing again, spinning slowly while the normal I stayed fixed on Harry. You've been busy since we last talked. The oath. The confrontation with Fudge. Making alliances with Slytherins. Harry kept his face neutral. You've been watching me. Always watching. Constant vigilance. The fake Moody's voice dropped. You're walking a dangerous path, Potter. The oath you swore, do you understand what you've bound yourself to? Better than most. I doubt that. The fake Moody stood, moving closer. Ancient magic doesn't follow the rules we know. It has its own logic. Its own requirements. You've tied your fate to finding the person who entered your name. But what happens if that person is protected by even older magic? Harry felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? Just a thought. The fake Moody smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Be careful, Potter. You're clever, but you're playing games with forces you don't understand. It would be a shame if you got yourself killed before you had a chance to fulfill your potential. Is that a warning? It's advice. Take it or leave it. Harry nodded slowly. I'll keep it in mind. He left the classroom, acutely aware of the magical eye following him until he turned the corner. That evening, Harry gathered his allies in the room of requirement. He'd discovered the room last year, almost by accident, during one of his nighttime wanderings. A room that appeared only when you needed it, configured for whatever purpose you had in mind. Tonight, he needed a secure meeting space. The room had provided exactly that, a comfortable sitting area with soft chairs, a fireplace, and walls that hummed faintly with privacy wards. Hermione, Ron, and Neville were already there when Harry arrived. And to the others' surprise, Daphne Greengrass had come as well. Before anyone says anything, Harry said, closing the door behind him, she's here because she offered to help and she's already proven useful. If anyone has a problem with that, speak now. Ron's mouth opened, then closed. He shot Daphne a suspicious look but said nothing. Good. Harry sat down. Here's what we know so far. He laid it out methodically. The goblet tampering. Crouch's suspicious behavior. Fudge's attempts to cover things up. The fake Moody. Wait, Ron interrupted. What do you mean, fake Moody? Daphne's father met the real Moody years ago. She says the man teaching defense doesn't have the same magical signature. Ron stared at Daphne. And you just noticed that? I notice a lot of things. Daphne's voice was cool. It's how I've survived in Slytherin. She's right, Hermione said reluctantly. I did some research. Magical signatures are distinctive, like fingerprints. They don't change over time. If the current Moody's signature doesn't match the real one's, then someone's impersonating him. Harry nodded. The question is who and why. Polyjuice potion, Neville said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. That's the most common way to impersonate someone. It requires hair or some other part of the target, and it only lasts an hour. But if you had a supply of the target's hair, you could maintain the disguise indefinitely. Hermione's eyes widened. But that would mean the real Moody is still alive somewhere. Being kept captive so the imposter can harvest hair. Or being slowly killed as the imposter takes what he needs. Harry's voice was grim. Either way, we need to find out who's under that disguise. How? Ron asked. It's not like we can just walk up and demand he prove he's the real Moody. No, but we can test him. Daphne leaned forward. Polyjuice copies appearance, not memories. If we can find something only the real Moody would know, something from his past, we can ask questions the imposter can't answer. That's risky, Hermione said. If the imposter realizes we're testing him, then we need to be subtle. Harry thought for a moment. Neville, You mentioned your grandmother has connections to the old crowd. Do you think she could get us information about Moody's past? Something specific that wouldn't be in any public record? Neville nodded slowly. Gran knew Moody during the First War. They worked together, I think. She might know things that aren't written down anywhere. Good. Ask her. Be careful how you phrase it, we don't want anyone knowing what we're looking for. What about Crouch? Ron asked. He's the one you actually swore the oath against. Crouch is a longer game. Harry pulled out the list Daphne had given him. These are families who might help us investigate him. Neutral parties who don't like the Ministry but aren't aligned with the Death Eaters either. Hermione took the list, scanning it. Some of these names are old families. Old money. They don't usually involve themselves in politics. They might make an exception for this. Daphne's voice was measured. The Potters were an old family too, before the war. That means something to people like them. If Harry approaches them as the last of his line, asking for help against an injustice, they might listen. Hermione nodded thoughtfully. It's still a risk. If word gets back to Fudge that Harry's building a coalition, let it. Harry's voice was hard. I'm tired of hiding. Let Fudge know I'm coming for answers. Let everyone know. Silence fell over the group. You've changed, Hermione said softly. Since last year. Since Sirius. I've been changing since I walked into Hogwarts. Harry looked at each of them in turn. Every year, something tries to kill me. Every year, I survive by luck and last-minute heroics. I'm done with that. From now on, I'm taking control. Ron grinned suddenly. Bloody hell, mate. When you put it like that, it sounds almost reasonable. It is reasonable. Daphne stood, smoothing her robes. Potter's finally acting like the player he should have been from the start. The only question is whether he can maintain the momentum. She headed for the door, then paused. One more thing. The first task is in 2 weeks. The champions don't know what they're facing yet, but there are rumors. Dragons. Harry felt his stomach drop. Dragons? One for each champion, supposedly. The challenge is to get past them somehow. Daphne smiled slightly. Since you're not competing, it's not your problem. But the chaos might provide opportunities. The Ministry's attention will be on the task. Not on what else might be happening. She left before anyone could respond. Ron let out a breath. She's terrifying. She's useful. Harry stared at the door. And she's right. The first task is a distraction. Whatever the fake Moody and whoever's behind all this have planned, the task might be when they make their move. So what do we do? Harry stood. We prepare. We gather information. We figure out who the imposter is and what he wants. He looked at his friends, his allies. And when the first task comes, we're ready for whatever happens. Hermione nodded firmly. Ron cracked his knuckles. Neville's jaw was set. Let's get to work, Harry said. The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. Harry threw himself into research and planning with an intensity that surprised even Hermione. He spent hours in the library, digging through old records and legal texts. He wrote letters to the families on Daphne's list, carefully worded requests for meetings. He practiced spells and dueling techniques in the room of requirement, pushing his magic harder than he ever had before. The oath he'd sworn had changed more than just his magic. It had changed him. He could feel the weight of it constantly, a pressure at the back of his mind, reminding him of what was at stake. Succeed or lose everything. Find the truth or forfeit his magic. It focused him. Sharpened him. Made him colder, yes, but also more effective. Hermione worried about him. He could see it in her eyes when he came to breakfast with dark circles under his own, when he snapped at people who interrupted his research, when he stayed up past midnight practicing combat spells. "You need to rest," she said one evening, finding him alone in the room of requirement. "You're going to burn yourself out." "I'll rest when I have answers." "Harry." She sat down across from him. "I know this is important. But running yourself into the ground isn't going to help. It's better than sitting around waiting for someone else to solve my problems." Harry didn't look up from the book he was reading, a treatise on magical contracts from the 15th century. "I've spent 3 years doing that. Trusting Dumbledore. Trusting the teachers. Trusting that the adults knew what they were doing. And they've saved your life more than once. They've also nearly gotten me killed. The stone. The chamber. Sirius." Harry's voice was bitter. "Every time, I only survived because I took matters into my own hands. If I'd waited for the adults, I'd be dead." Hermione was silent for a moment. "You're not wrong," she said finally. "But you're not entirely right either. You survived because you had help. Ron and me, first year. Fawkes and the Sword, second year. Buckbeak and the Time Turner, third year." She reached out and touched his hand. "You don't have to do everything alone." Harry finally looked up. Hermione's eyes were worried but steady. "I know," he said quietly. "That's why I called you all together. Why I accepted Daphne's help. I'm not trying to do everything alone." He paused. "But I am trying to be the one making the decisions. No more letting other people control my fate." "That's fair." Hermione squeezed his hand. "Just remember that we're here. That you can rely on us. That you don't have to carry all of this by yourself." Harry nodded slowly. "I'll try." 3 days before the first task, Neville came to Harry with news. Gran wrote back. He handed over a letter, his face troubled. "She was reluctant to answer my questions about Moody. But she told me some things." Harry read the letter quickly. Augusta Longbottom's handwriting was precise and elegant. "She says Moody has a distinctive tell when he's nervous. He taps his wand against his artificial leg in a specific pattern. 3 quick taps, then 2 slow ones." Harry looked up. "Has anyone seen the current Moody do that?" Neville shook his head. "I've been watching. He drinks from that hip flask constantly, and his eye spins when he's agitated, but I've never seen the leg tapping. Could mean something, could mean nothing." Harry folded the letter. "What else?" Gran also said that Moody and Crouch worked together during the war. They were both ruthless in their own ways, but they had different methods. Moody believed in capturing Death Eaters alive for interrogation. Crouch wanted them dead or in Azkaban immediately. Neville paused. "She says they had a falling out after the war. Something about Crouch's son's trial. Moody thought there should have been more investigation." Harry felt pieces clicking into place. Moody thought Crouch Jr. might have been innocent. Or at least that the trial was unfair. Gran wasn't clear on the details. Neville looked uncomfortable. "She also said something else. About my parents." "What?" "They were interrogated by Moody before the Lestranges were captured. He was trying to find out who had attacked them." Neville's voice was strained. "Gran says he was obsessed with the case. Kept investigating even after everyone else had moved on. He never believed that all the guilty parties had been caught." Harry stared at him. Moody thought there were other attackers. Besides the Lestranges and Crouch Jr. He thought there might have been a 5th person. Someone who escaped before the Aurors arrived. Neville's hands were clenched. "Gran says he never found any proof, but he never stopped looking. A 5th attacker. Someone who had participated in torturing the Longbottoms and gotten away with it. If the real Moody is still alive," Harry said slowly, "and he's being held captive by the imposter. Then the imposter might be that 5th person. Neville's face was pale but determined. The one who got away. Harry stood abruptly. We need to search Moody's office. Tonight. That's insane. If he catches us, he won't catch us. Harry's mind was racing. The champions have a preparation session tonight for the first task. All the judges will be there, including whoever's currently wearing Moody's face. His office will be empty. Neville stared at him. You're serious. Completely. Harry met his eyes. This might be our only chance to find out who we're really dealing with. Are you in? Neville took a deep breath. Then he nodded. I'm in. That night, Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Neville made their way to the fourth floor under the cover of Harry's invisibility cloak. It was a tight fit for 4 people, but they managed, moving slowly and carefully through the corridors. The castle was quiet at this hour, most students in their common rooms or the Great Hall. Moody's office door was locked with multiple charms. Hermione had anticipated this, she'd spent the afternoon researching unlocking spells. Standard Ministry Ward, she whispered, her wand tracing patterns in the air. Designed to alert the caster if someone tries to break through. Can you disable it? I can delay the alert. We'll have maybe 10 minutes before it triggers. That's enough. Harry pulled out the Marauder's map. I'll keep watch. You 3 search. Hermione nodded and got to work. After a tense 2 minutes, the door clicked open. The office was dark and cluttered, full of strange instruments and dark detectors. Harry stayed by the door, watching the map, while the others fanned out. Over here. Neville's voice was strangled. He was standing near a large trunk in the corner. Harry looked up from the map. What is it? The trunk. It has 7 locks. Neville's wand was shaking. I've heard of these. They're wizard space trunks, each lock opens to a different compartment. Hermione was already examining the locks. Some of these are trapped. Give me a minute. The minutes stretched into 2, then 3. Harry watched the map anxiously. Still no sign of Moody returning. Got it. Hermione opened the 7th lock. They all looked down into the trunk. It was deep, much deeper than should have been possible. And at the bottom, barely visible in the dim light, was a figure. A man, huddled and unmoving. Lumos, Harry whispered. The light revealed a face Harry recognized from photographs, scarred, battle-worn, with a chunk missing from the nose. Mad-Eye Moody. The real one. He was alive, they could see his chest rising and falling, but clearly drugged or enchanted into unconsciousness. Bloody hell, Ron breathed. We have to get him out. Neville was already reaching down. Wait. Harry grabbed his arm. If we take him now, the imposter will know we found him. We'll lose our advantage. We can't just leave him. We won't. But we need a plan. Harry's mind was working furiously. We know who the real Moody is now. We know the imposter has been keeping him alive for polyjuice ingredients. If we expose the imposter without proof, he'll claim it's all a misunderstanding, Hermione finished. Or escape before anyone can stop him. Exactly. Harry looked at the map again. We need to find out who the imposter is first. What he wants. Why he entered my name in the goblet. How? We let him think he's still safe. We watch him. We gather evidence. Harry's voice was cold. And when we have everything we need, we take him down. Ron looked sick. That means leaving the real Moody in there. For now. We'll check on him. Make sure he stays alive. But we can't move too early. Hermione closed the trunk carefully, resetting the locks. Harry's right. If we expose the imposter now, we might never find out who he's working with or what their plan really is. Neville stared at the trunk for a long moment. Then he nodded tightly. Fine. But the moment we have what we need, we end this. Harry met his eyes. I promise. They slipped out of the office, Hermione resetting the wards behind them. Harry checked the map one more time. A name was moving toward them. Bartemius Crouch. No, not Bartemius Crouch. The name on the map was different. Bartemius Crouch Jr. Harry's blood turned to ice. Move, he hissed. Now. They ran, the invisibility cloak billowing around them. Behind them, footsteps echoed in the corridor. They made it around the corner just as the fake Moody's door opened. Harry pressed them all against the wall, barely breathing. Through a gap in the cloak, he watched Bartemius Crouch Jr., wearing the face of Mad-Eye Moody, enter his office. The door closed behind him. Harry looked at the map again. The name was clear, impossible to misread. Crouch's son. The one supposedly dead in Azkaban. The one convicted of torturing the Longbottoms. Alive. In Hogwarts. Impersonating a professor. Harry felt the oath magic flare inside him, recognizing its true target. He had found his enemy. Now he just had to figure out how to destroy him. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Allies in Unlikely Places. Harry didn't sleep that night. He lay in his four-poster bed, staring at the canopy, his mind churning through everything they discovered. Bartemius Crouch Jr. alive. In Hogwarts. Wearing Mad-Eye Moody's face and teaching defense against the dark arts to children. The man who had tortured Neville's parents into insanity was sleeping 3 floors above him. And Harry had shaken his hand. Accepted his help. Taken advice from him about combat and survival. The betrayal burned like acid in his chest. But beneath the anger, something colder was taking shape. A plan. Crouch Jr. had entered Harry's name in the goblet, that much was certain now. The question was why? What did a Death Eater want with Harry Potter in a deadly tournament? The answer seemed obvious, to kill him. But that didn't quite fit. There were easier ways to kill a student than entering them in the Triwizard Tournament. A curse in a dark corridor. Poison in his pumpkin juice. A push down a staircase made to look like an accident. No. Crouch Jr. wanted something specific. Something that required Harry in the tournament, facing the tasks, surrounded by witnesses. What? Harry turned the problem over and over, examining it from every angle. By the time gray dawn light crept through the dormitory windows, he had the beginnings of an answer. The tournament was public. International. Every major wizarding government would be watching. If Harry died in the tournament, it would look like an accident, a tragic consequence of the competition's dangers. No one would suspect murder. But more than that, the tournament would force Harry to compete. To fight. To use magic under pressure, in ways that might reveal things about him. Things that the Death Eaters, or Voldemort himself, might want to know. Harry thought about his first 2 years at Hogwarts. The strange connection he'd felt to Voldemort. The Parseltongue that had emerged from nowhere. The way the Dark Lord's soul had tried to possess Ginny, and how Harry had felt it happening even from a distance. There was something linking them. Something Dumbledore knew about but wouldn't explain. Something that Voldemort's followers might be very interested in studying. The tournament was a trap. But not just to kill him, to test him. To observe him. To learn whatever secrets his connection to the Dark Lord might reveal. Harry sat up in bed, his decision made. He wouldn't just expose Crouch Jr., he would turn the trap around. Use the imposter's confidence against him. Let him think his plan was working while Harry gathered the evidence needed to destroy everything he was building. It would be dangerous. Crouch Jr. was a fanatic, the kind of Death Eater who would torture innocents for information and call it devotion. If he realized Harry was onto him, he would kill without hesitation. But Harry had faced death before. He could face it again. This time, though, he wouldn't be facing it alone. The morning of the first task dawned cold and gray. Harry found his allies waiting in the room of requirement, their faces grim. He'd sent messages the night before, urgent, brief, asking them to come early. "You found something?" Daphne wasn't asking. Her gray eyes were sharp, assessing. "We found everything." Harry closed the door and activated the room's privacy wards. The fake Moody is Bartemius Crouch Jr., silence. Then, from Neville, a sound like all the air leaving his lungs at once. "That's impossible." Hermione's voice was shaking. "Crouch Jr. died in Azkaban. There are records. Death certificates. The records are wrong. Or faked." Harry looked at Neville, whose face had gone chalk-white. "The map doesn't lie. It shows people's true names, not their disguises. When Crouch Jr. walked past us last night, his name was right there on the parchment." "The man who," Neville couldn't finish the sentence. "Yes." Harry's voice was gentle but firm. "The man who tortured your parents. He's been teaching us defense all year. And he's the one who entered my name in the goblet." Ron swore under his breath. Hermione pressed a hand to her mouth. Daphne's expression didn't change, but her fingers had gone white where they gripped her wand. "We have to tell someone," Hermione said. "Dumbledore. McGonagall. The Aurors." "And tell them what?" "That the Marauder's map says a dead man is alive." Harry shook his head. "They'll think we're mad. Or worse, they'll investigate openly and tip Crouch off. He'll run, or he'll claim it's all a misunderstanding, and we'll lose our only chance to find out what he's really planning. So what do you suggest?" Daphne's voice was cool, but Harry could hear the tension beneath it. "We gather evidence. Real evidence, the kind that can't be explained away. We find out exactly what Crouch Jr. is planning and who he's working with. And then, when we have everything we need, we bring it all crashing down. That could take weeks." Hermione was pacing now. "Months, even. And in the meantime, a Death Eater is walking around Hogwarts, interacting with students, having access to," she stopped. "Harry, he's been alone with you multiple times. If he wanted to hurt you, he doesn't. Not yet." Harry had thought about this. "If he wanted me dead, I'd be dead already. He's had plenty of opportunities. Whatever his plan is, it requires me alive. At least for now. That's not exactly comforting. It's not meant to be. It's just the truth." Harry looked around at his allies. "I'm not asking any of you to put yourselves in danger. This is my fight. My oath. If you want to step back, don't be an idiot." Ron's voice was rough. "You're my best mate. I'm not letting you face this alone." "Same here." Hermione's chin came up. "We started this together. We'll finish it together." Neville didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The look in his eyes said everything, years of grief and rage, finally given a target. Daphne was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "I'm in. But we do this smart. No heroics, no rushing in without a plan." She fixed Harry with a hard stare. "You want to take down a Death Eater? Fine. But we do it properly, or we don't do it at all." "Agreed." Harry felt something warm in his chest, gratitude, maybe, or something like hope. "Here's what I'm thinking." He laid out the plan. Watch Crouch Jr. without alerting him. Document his movements, his meetings, his communications. Find proof that he's impersonating Moody, the real Moody in the trunk, the polyjuice ingredients, anything tangible. And most importantly, discover what he wants with Harry in the tournament. "The first task is today," Harry finished. "All the judges and officials will be focused on the champions. That's when we start." The champions' tent was crowded with nervous energy when Harry slipped inside. He wasn't competing, his refusal still stood, but no one had explicitly banned him from the area. And he had reasons for being here that went beyond curiosity. Cedric Diggory was pacing near the entrance, his handsome face pale. Victor Crumb sat in a corner, eyes closed, apparently meditating. Fleur Delacour was speaking rapidly in French to her headmistress, her silver blonde hair catching the light. None of them noticed Harry at first. He stayed near the back, watching. Waiting. Potter. Cedric had spotted him. "What are you doing here?" "Came to wish you luck." It wasn't entirely a lie. "And to warn you. There are dragons out there." Cedric's eyes widened. "How do you know that?" "I have my sources." Harry had overheard Hagrid talking to Madame Maxime 2 nights ago. The half-giant wasn't exactly subtle. "One dragon for each champion. You have to get past it somehow." "Merlin." Cedric ran a hand through his hair. "Dragons. I thought the tournament was supposed to be safer this year." "Someone lied." Cedric laughed weakly. "Yeah. Someone did." He studied Harry for a moment. "You really didn't put your name in, did you?" "No. I believe you. I don't know why, but I do." Cedric stuck out his hand. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Refusing to compete. Standing up to the ministry." Harry shook his hand. "For what it's worth, I hope you survive." "Charming." But Cedric was almost smiling. "See you on the other side, Potter." Harry slipped back out of the tent. He had other business to attend to. The stands around the dragon enclosure were filling rapidly. Harry found a spot near the back, away from the other students, where he could watch without being noticed. Hermione and Ron had positioned themselves near the judge's box. Neville was watching the paths leading to and from the enclosure. Daphne was somewhere in the Slytherin section, keeping an eye on Malfoy and his cronies. They were spread out, watching everything. The first task was about to begin, but for Harry, the real game was happening elsewhere. He pulled out the Marauder's map and whispered the activation phrase. The parchment bloomed with ink, showing the castle and grounds in intricate detail. Harry found the dot labeled Bartemius Crouch Jr. Immediately. It was moving through the lower corridors of the castle, heading toward a secluded section of the dungeons. Not toward the task. Away from it. Harry's heart rate quickened. Whatever Crouch Jr. was planning, it was happening now. He looked around quickly. No one was watching him. The crowd's attention was fixed on the enclosure, where officials were preparing the first challenge. Harry made a decision. He slipped away from the stands, moving quickly through the chaos of the crowds. Once he was clear of the viewing area, he broke into a run. The dungeons were cold and silent. Harry moved carefully, one eye on the map, tracking Crouch Jr.'s progress. The Death Eater had stopped in a corridor near the potions classrooms, an area that should be empty during the task. Should be. But there was another dot on the map, waiting in the same location. Bartemius Crouch Sr. Harry's blood went cold. Father and son, meeting in secret while everyone else was distracted by the tournament. This wasn't a coincidence. He found a shadowed alcove near the meeting spot and pressed himself into it, barely breathing. Voices drifted toward him, low, tense, angry. "Can't keep doing this." That was Crouch Sr., his voice strained. "The Imperius is weakening. I can feel it slipping. Then I'll reinforce it." Crouch Jr.'s voice was nothing like Moody's gruff growl. It was younger, smoother, with an edge of madness. "You'll do as you're told, Father. You always have. This is insane. If anyone finds out, no one will find out. Everyone is watching the tournament. Watching your precious competition." Contempt dripped from every word. "You did your job well, Father. The perfect cover. The perfect distraction. The Potter boy is exactly where he needs to be." Or will be, soon enough. Crouch Jr. laughed softly. He thinks he's so clever, refusing to compete. Swearing his little oath. He doesn't understand what's really happening. What is happening? You've never told me the full plan. Because you don't need to know. You just need to obey. There was a sound of movement, and Crouch Sr. let out a pained gasp. The Dark Lord will return. Soon. And when he does, he'll reward those who serve him faithfully. That includes me. A pause. But not you, Father. Never you. You'll pay for what you did. For Azkaban. For Mother. For everything. Barty, please, silence. The word cracked like a whip. Go back to the task. Smile for the crowds. Play your part. And if you breathe a word of this to anyone, I won't. I swear I won't. Good. Footsteps moving away. Don't disappoint me, Father. You know what happens to people who disappoint me. Harry pressed himself deeper into the shadows as Crouch Jr. passed. The Death Eater was wearing Moody's face again, but his gait was different, smoother, more confident, without the characteristic limp. He didn't notice Harry. He was too focused on whatever came next. Harry waited until the footsteps faded, then checked the map. Crouch Sr. was still in the corridor, alone. His dot was trembling slightly on the parchment. Harry made another decision. He stepped out of the shadows. Crouch Sr. spun around, wand raised, his face a mask of terror. When he saw Harry, the terror shifted to something more complex, fear, yes, but also desperation. And beneath it all, a strange, fractured hope. Potter. His voice was a croak. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing. Harry kept his hands visible, non-threatening. But I think I already know the answer. Crouch's wand trembled. You don't know anything. I know your son is alive. I know he's been impersonating Moody. I know he entered my name in the goblet. Harry took a step closer. And I know he's got you under the Imperius curse. The wand dropped. Crouch staggered back, hitting the wall, his face crumbling. How? The word was barely a whisper. I have my methods. Harry didn't elaborate. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I can't, he'll know, the curse, fight it. Harry's voice hardened. You sent your own son to Azkaban once. You had the strength to do that. Find it again. That was different. I thought I was doing the right thing. Crouch's laugh was bitter, broken. I thought justice mattered more than blood. But I was wrong. About everything. Were you? Harry took another step. Your son tortured innocent people. He destroyed the Longbottoms. He would have killed more if he hadn't been stopped. Was it wrong to hold him accountable? I didn't hold him accountable. I threw him away. Tears were streaming down Crouch's face. My wife begged me. Begged me to save him. She died for him, took his place in Azkaban, polyjuiced as him, so he could escape. And I let her. I let her die so I could keep my secret. Keep my perfect reputation. Harry felt something twist in his chest. Not sympathy, exactly, Crouch had done terrible things, but recognition. The weight of impossible choices. The way the past could trap you worse than any prison. Your son is planning something, Harry said quietly. Something involving me and Voldemort. Help me stop him. Crouch flinched at the name. I can't. The curse is weakening. You said so yourself. Fight it. I've tried. Every day, I've tried. Crouch's voice broke. But he's my son. My blood. There's some part of me that doesn't want to fight him. That still loves him, even now. Then don't fight for yourself. Harry moved closer, until he was right in front of the shattered man. Fight for the people he's going to hurt. The people who'll die if his plan succeeds. Fight for them. Crouch stared at him. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then something shifted in his eyes. A spark of the iron will that had once made him the most feared prosecutor in Wizarding Britain. "The Dark Lord," he said, and his voice was stronger now. "Barty is trying to bring him back. There's a ritual. It requires specific ingredients. Blood of the enemy, forcibly taken." Harry's blood went cold. "My blood?" "Yes. The tournament is a cover. A way to get you isolated, away from protection, at a moment when your disappearance could be explained as an accident." Crouch swallowed hard. "The third task. It's a maze. The cup at the center will be turned into a portkey. When you touch it, I'll be transported to wherever Voldemort is waiting." Yes. Harry absorbed this. It made terrible sense. The tournament wasn't about killing him, it was about capturing him. Delivering him to the Dark Lord like a sacrifice. How do I stop it? I don't know. Barty has been careful. He doesn't tell me everything. Crouch's hands were shaking. But there might be records. Notes. He keeps them hidden, somewhere in the castle. Where? I don't. Crouch's face contorted suddenly, and he let out a choked scream. His body went rigid, back arching. Harry recognized the signs. The Imperius Curse, reasserting control. Fight it. He grabbed Crouch's shoulders. Tell me where. The office, 7 locks. Crouch's voice was fading, his eyes glazing over. Under the false bottom, hidden. Then the light went out of his eyes, and when he spoke again, his voice was flat. Controlled. Mr. Potter. What are you doing here? The task is above ground. Harry stepped back slowly. I got lost. These dungeons all look the same. Indeed. Crouch's face was blank now, a puppet's expression. You should return to the stands. Wouldn't want to miss the excitement. Of course. Harry forced a smile. Thank you, Mr. Crouch. He walked away, keeping his pace steady, resisting the urge to run. Behind him, he could feel Crouch's empty gaze following him until he turned the corner. The first task was nearly over when Harry made it back to the stands. He found Hermione and Ron in the chaos, their faces pale with worry. Where were you? Hermione hissed. We saw you leave, we thought something had happened, something did. Harry pulled them into a quiet corner. I found Crouch Sr. He's being controlled by his son. Imperius Curse. Ron swore. That's how Crouch Jr. escaped Azkaban. His father helped him. His mother helped him. She died taking his place. Harry quickly summarized what he'd learned, the ritual, the blood, the portkey plan. The third task is when they're going to make their move. They need me to touch the cup. Then don't touch the cup, Ron said. Simple. It's not that simple. If I don't compete at all, they'll find another way. And now that they know I'm suspicious. Harry shook his head. I need to find Crouch Jr.'s notes. He's keeping records somewhere in Moody's office. Under a false bottom in something with 7 locks. The trunk. Hermione's eyes widened. The one where we found the real Moody. It had 7 locks, remember? Different compartments for each one. We checked all of them. We checked what was visible. But if there's a false bottom in one of the compartments. Harry nodded slowly. We need to go back. Tonight, while everyone's celebrating or recovering from the task. That's insane. If Crouch Jr. catches us, he won't. Harry's voice was hard. I'll make sure of it. The celebration in the Gryffindor common room that night was subdued. Cedric had won the first task, barely. He'd gotten his golden egg, but he'd also gotten badly burned. The Swedish short snout had nearly killed him twice. Fleur had been injured worse, her robes catching fire. Crumb had been efficient but brutal, blinding his dragon with a conjunctivitis curse. The tournament was supposed to be safer than previous versions. People were starting to question that claim. Harry waited until the common room had mostly emptied, the younger students sent to bed and the older ones drifting off in groups. Then he gathered his team. Ron, Hermione, Neville. Not Daphne, she'd drawn the line at breaking into a professor's office twice in 1 week. But she'd provided something useful, a charm that would alert them if anyone approached within 50 feet of Moody's door. Same plan as before, Harry said as they made their way through the darkened corridors. I watch the map, you search. We've got one target, the false bottom in the trunk. The office door yielded to Hermione's unlocking charms, just as before. They slipped inside, wands lit. The trunk sat in the same corner, apparently undisturbed. Harry kept his eyes on the map while Neville and Ron lifted the heavy lid. Which compartment? Ron whispered. Try them all. Look for anything that doesn't seem right, seams, discoloration, loose panels. They worked quickly, methodically, checking each of the 7 compartments. Harry watched their progress while monitoring the map. Crouch Jr. was in the Great Hall, probably enjoying the post-task feast. Found something. Neville's voice was tense. 4th compartment. The bottom isn't wood, it's metal, painted to look like wood. And there's a catch here. A soft click. Then Neville's hand came up holding a leather journal and a rolled sheaf of parchments. Got it. Don't read it here. Harry was already moving toward the door. We take it, we leave, we examine it somewhere safe. They were out of the office in under a minute. Hermione reset the wards behind them. Harry checked the map one more time. Crouch Jr. was still in the Great Hall. They made it back to the room of requirement without incident. The journal was worse than Harry had imagined. Crouch Jr. had been thorough. Meticulous. Every step of his plan was documented in cramped, obsessive handwriting. The escape from Azkaban. His mother's sacrifice. The years hidden under his father's imperious curse, slowly going mad in a silent house while the world forgot he existed. Then the World Cup, where a moment of weakness had let him cast the dark mark and feel, for the first time in years, alive. And then the plan. The beautiful, terrible plan. He's been working on this for months, Hermione said, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe longer. The goblet tampering, the Moody impersonation, the tournament manipulation, it's all here. So is the ritual. Harry was reading the relevant pages, his stomach turning. The resurrection of Voldemort. It requires bone of the father, flesh of the servant, and blood of the enemy. My blood. Because of the protection your mother gave you. Hermione had gone pale. If Voldemort uses your blood in his new body, he can touch me. The protection won't work anymore. Harry set down the journal. Crouch Jr. figured that out. Or Voldemort told him. Either way, they need me specifically. Then we don't let them have you. Ron's voice was fierce. We take this to Dumbledore. Tonight. Right now. No. The word came out sharper than Harry intended. Not yet. Harry, this is insane, think about it. Harry forced his voice to calm. If we expose Crouch Jr. now, what happens? He gets arrested. Maybe he talks, maybe he doesn't. Either way, Voldemort finds another way. Another servant. Another plan. And we lose our only window into what the Death Eaters are doing. So what do you suggest? Hermione asked quietly. We let the plan continue. Up to a point. Harry's mind was racing, pieces clicking into place. Crouch Jr. thinks I'm going to compete in the third task. He thinks I'm going to touch that cup and get transported right into Voldemort's arms. But what if I don't? You're not competing. Not officially. But nothing stops me from being near the maze when the task happens. Nothing stops me from getting to that cup before anyone else, and destroying it instead of touching it. Ron stared at him. You want to sabotage the task. I want to sabotage their plan. The cup is the key. It's how they're going to capture me. If I destroy it, publicly, in front of everyone, the whole scheme falls apart. Crouch Jr. gets exposed, Voldemort's resurrection gets delayed, and we do it on our terms. Not theirs. Silence fell over the room. That's brilliant, Neville said slowly. And completely insane. It's both. Harry smiled grimly. That's usually how my plans work out. The next few days were a careful balancing act. Harry continued his public role as the defiant non-champion, the boy who had refused to compete and sworn an oath against the ministry. He attended classes, did homework, maintained the appearance of a normal fourth-year student. But beneath the surface, he was preparing. The journal had given him details about the third task, the maze, the creatures inside, the location of the cup. Crouch Jr. had been planning to ensure Harry reached the center first, using subtle magic to clear his path. Harry would use that same information against him. He also had new allies working on his behalf. Augusta Longbottom had agreed to meet him during the next Hogsmeade weekend. Through Neville, she'd indicated that she was very interested in what Harry had discovered, and that she had resources he might find useful. Daphne's list of neutral families had started yielding results. 2 minor houses had responded to Harry's letters with cautious interest. They weren't ready to commit publicly, but they were watching. Waiting to see if the Potter boy was really as formidable as the papers suggested. And there was one other potential ally Harry hadn't expected. Sirius Black's letter arrived by owl on a Thursday morning. Harry, heard about your oath. Proud of you for standing up for yourself, but worried about the risks. Ancient magic is nothing to play with. I'm in hiding, but I'm not useless. I have contacts from the old days, people who might have information about the Crouches, the tournament, anything else you need. More importantly, I have information about you. About your parents. About why Voldemort targeted them specifically. If you want to know the truth, meet me at the cave near Hogsmeade this Saturday. Come alone, too many people and someone might spot me. Be careful. Padfoot Harry read the letter 3 times, his heart pounding. The truth about his parents. Finally. Part of him wanted to rush to the cave immediately, consequences be damned. But the colder, more calculating part of his mind urged caution. Sirius had been in Azkaban for 12 years. He might not know anything useful. Or he might know things that Dumbledore had deliberately kept from Harry, things that changed everything. Either way, Harry had to find out. Saturday, he murmured. After the Hogsmeade trip. After the meeting with Augusta Longbottom. He had a lot to do before then. The Three Broomsticks was crowded with Hogwarts students when Harry arrived for his meeting. He'd chosen a corner booth, away from the main traffic, with good sightlines to the door. Daphne had taught him that, always know your exits, always watch who's coming and going. Augusta Longbottom arrived precisely on time. She was tall and thin, with sharp features that reminded Harry of a hawk. Her hat, a large, rather ugly thing with a stuffed vulture on top, was unmistakable. She swept into the pub like she owned it, ignoring the stares of students and adults alike. Mr. Potter. She slid into the booth across from him, her eyes assessing. You're smaller than I expected. I get that a lot. She waved to Madame Rosmerta, who hurried over with tea service. My grandson speaks highly of you. Says you're brave, determined, and entirely too reckless for your own good. That sounds accurate. It does. Augusta poured tea with practiced precision. He also says you've discovered something. Something about the man who destroyed my Frank and Alice. Harry met her gaze steadily. Bartemius Crouch Jr. is alive. He's been hiding in Hogwarts, impersonating Alastor Moody. He entered my name in the Goblet of Fire as part of a plan to resurrect Voldemort. Augusta didn't flinch at the name. Her expression didn't change at all, in fact. She simply set down the teapot and folded her hands. Proof. Harry slid the journal across the table. His own words. His plans. Everything. Augusta read in silence for several minutes. Harry watched her face, looking for any crack in the composure, any sign of the fury that must be building beneath the surface. When she finally looked up, her eyes were burning. How long have you known? A few days. And you haven't told anyone? I've told my friends. My allies. Not the authorities. Harry took a breath. I want to stop Crouch Jr., but I want to do it properly. Expose the whole conspiracy, not just one piece of it. That's ambitious. It's necessary. If we move too early, Voldemort finds another way. Another servant. Another plan. We need to cut off all the heads at once. Augusta studied him for a long moment. You've changed, Mr. Potter. The boy Neville described from first year wouldn't have thought in those terms. The boy from first year almost died 3 times. I learned. Indeed. Augusta closed the journal. What do you want from me? Information. Resources. Political support when the time comes. Harry leaned forward. I know the Longbottoms have influence on the Wizengamot. When I expose Crouch Jr., when I bring this whole thing crashing down, I'll need allies. People who can make sure the truth actually matters. That it doesn't get buried by Fudge and the Ministry. You're asking me to stake my family's reputation on a 14-year-old's vendetta. I'm asking you to help me destroy the man who tortured your son and daughter-in-law. Harry's voice hardened. Is that a vendetta? Or is it justice? Silence stretched between them. Then Augusta Longbottom smiled. It was not a warm expression. I like you, Mr. Potter. You have steel in you. She extended her hand. The Longbottom family will support your efforts. When the time comes, we will stand with you. Harry shook her hand. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Her grip was surprisingly strong. We haven't won anything. We've just agreed to fight the same enemy. She released his hand and stood. Be careful, Mr. Potter. You're playing a dangerous game. One mistake could cost you everything. I know. Do you? Augusta looked at him, and for a moment her hawk-like composure cracked, revealing something older and sadder beneath. I thought I understood danger once. Then I visited my son in St. Mungo's and watched him not recognize his own mother. She gathered her things and swept toward the door. Don't let them do that to you, Mr. Potter. Whatever else happens, don't let them break you. Then she was gone. Harry sat alone in the booth, the journal heavy in his hands, and thought about all the different ways this could go wrong. The cave was dark and smelled of salt and seaweed. Harry climbed up the rocky path, his wand lit, every sense on alert. The Marauder's map showed no one else in the area, but he wasn't taking chances. Sirius. Movement in the shadows. Then a large black dog emerged, transforming mid-stride into a thin, gaunt man with matted hair and hollow eyes. Harry. Sirius's voice was rough with emotion. You came. You said you had information. Straight to business. Sirius laughed weakly. You really have changed. A lot's happened since last year. Harry stayed near the cave entrance, not quite approaching. You said you knew why Voldemort targeted my parents. I do. Or I know part of it. Sirius moved deeper into the cave, gesturing for Harry to follow. There's a fire back here. Warmer. Harry followed cautiously. The cave opened into a larger chamber where a small fire burned, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Buckbeak was there too, the hippogriff dozing in a corner. Sirius settled by the fire, looking even more haggard in the flickering light. Your parents weren't random targets, he said. Voldemort chose them specifically. Do you know why? The prophecy. Harry had read about it in Crouch Jr.'s journal, references to a prophecy that marked him as Voldemort's equal. There's a prophecy about me and Voldemort. Sirius's eyebrows rose. You know about that? I know it exists. I don't know what it says. Neither do I. Not exactly. Sirius leaned back. But I know it was made before you were born. It predicted that a child would be born who could defeat the Dark Lord. Voldemort learned about it, part of it, anyway, and decided to kill that child before he could become a threat. And he chose me. He chose you. Not because you were the only possibility, there was another child who could have fit the prophecy, but because of something else. Something in you that he recognized. Or feared. Harry's blood went cold. What do you mean? I don't know exactly. Dumbledore might. Sirius's voice was bitter. He's always known more than he told us. Even during the war, he kept secrets. Said it was for safety, but I always wondered. Wondered what? If he was protecting us. Or protecting his plans. Harry absorbed this. It fit with everything he'd come to believe about Dumbledore, a man who meant well but kept too many secrets, who controlled too much and shared too little. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know. Because I've watched from a distance this year, seen what you've been doing, and I'm proud of you. Sirius met his eyes. Your father would have been proud too. He never backed down from a fight. Never let anyone push him around. I need more than pride. Harry's voice was hard. I need information. Allies. Resources. Can you help with any of that? Sirius was quiet for a moment. I have contacts in the old resistance. People who fought Voldemort the first time. Some of them might be willing to help, if they believe you're the real thing. How do I prove that? By doing what you're already doing. Standing up. Fighting back. Refusing to be a pawn. Sirius smiled slightly. The Order of the Phoenix, that's what we called ourselves, we believed in action. Direct action. Not waiting for the Ministry to do the right thing. The Order of the Phoenix. Harry filed the name away. Are they still active? Some of them. Scattered. Waiting. Sirius's eyes gleamed. Waiting for a reason to come back together. You might be that reason, Harry. Then bring them to me. When the time comes, when I expose Crouch Jr. and reveal what Voldemort's planning, I'll need people I can trust. People who'll fight. You'll have them. Sirius extended his hand. On my honor as a marauder. Harry shook his hand. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Sirius's grip tightened briefly. You're walking into a war, Harry. Even if you stop this particular plan, the Dark Lord will keep trying. He won't stop until one of you is dead. Then I'll make sure it's him. The words came out flat. Certain. Harry barely recognized his own voice. Sirius stared at him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. James would be proud, he said again. And terrified. But proud. Harry made his way back to Hogwarts as the sun set, his mind churning with everything he'd learned. The prophecy. The Order of the Phoenix. Voldemort's specific interest in him. It all connected somehow, formed a pattern he couldn't quite see yet. But he was getting closer. Every piece of information, every alliance, every secret uncovered, it all brought him closer to understanding the truth. And closer to the confrontation he knew was coming. He was halfway across the grounds when he saw her. Daphne was waiting by the lake, her robes pulled tight against the evening chill. She didn't speak as Harry approached, just fell into step beside him. "You've been busy." "So have you." Harry had seen her in the library earlier, surrounded by legal texts. "Find anything useful?" "Maybe." She glanced at him sidelong. "There's a provision in the Wisengamot Charter. Emergency sessions. If a member can demonstrate an imminent threat to the magical world, they can force a hearing within 48 hours. Harry's interest sharpened. Define imminent threat. The resurrection of a Dark Lord probably qualifies. They walked in silence for a moment, the lake glittering beside them. "You're planning something," Daphne said. "For the third task." "I can tell. I'm always planning something. This is different. Bigger." She stopped walking, turning to face him. "You're going to expose everything, aren't you? The conspiracy, the prophecy, all of it. When the time is right. When will that be?" Harry looked at her, really looked. Her sharp gray eyes, her careful composure, the fear she was trying to hide beneath layers of cool detachment. "Soon," he said. "A few weeks. The third task is the deadline. And then? And then everything changes." He paused. "I can't promise it'll be safe. For any of us. If this goes wrong, I know the risks." Daphne's voice was steady, but her hands were trembling slightly. "I made my choice. I'm not backing out now." "Why?" The question surprised Harry as much as it seemed to surprise her. "You could walk away. Go back to being neutral. Why stake everything on me?" Daphne was silent for a long moment. "Because neutral is a lie," she said finally. "My family's been pretending for years, that we can stay out of the conflict, that we can survive by keeping our heads down. But it's not true. When the Dark Lord returns, there won't be any neutral ground. You're either with him or against him. And you've chosen against. I've chosen you." She met his eyes, and there was something in her gaze that made Harry's breath catch. "For better or worse. You're the only person in this whole bloody mess who's actually fighting. Who's refusing to accept the way things are. That might get me killed." "It might." Daphne smiled slightly. "But at least you'll die standing up. That's more than most people can say." They stood there, looking at each other, the evening wind stirring their robes. Something shifted between them, not quite romantic, not yet, but something. An understanding. A connection. "Come on," Harry said finally. "We've got work to do." They walked toward the castle together, shoulder to shoulder, ready for whatever came next. The weeks leading up to the second task passed in a blur of preparation. Harry trained harder than ever, pushing his magic to its limits. The oath he'd sworn had enhanced his abilities somehow, made his spells sharper, his reflexes faster, his instincts more acute. He still didn't fully understand the mechanism, but he wasn't complaining. Hermione helped him research the maze, the creatures likely to be inside, the location of the cup. Ron practiced combat spells with him, playing the role of opponent in their room of requirement sessions. Neville contributed his knowledge of magical plants, many of which would be used as obstacles in the third task. And Daphne taught him politics. How to read people. How to identify their motivations, their weaknesses, their leverage points. How to navigate the complex web of alliances and enmities that made up pureblood society. The Wisengamot isn't just a court, she explained one evening. It's an arena. Every vote is a battle. Every speech is a weapon. If you want to bring down Crouch, really bring him down, not just get him arrested, you need to understand how the game is played. I'm not interested in games. Then you'll lose. Daphne's voice was sharp. This isn't about what you want, Potter. It's about what works. You can have all the evidence in the world, but if you present it wrong, if you alienate the wrong people or underestimate your enemies, it won't matter. Harry forced himself to listen. To learn. It didn't come naturally, the patience, the subtlety, the endless calculation, but he understood its necessity. He was building toward something. A moment when all his preparations would pay off. A confrontation that would either save him or destroy him. The second task came and went. Harry watched from the stands as the champions dove into the lake, emerging an hour later with their rescued hostages. Cedric and Crumb tied for first. Fleur didn't find her sister in time, she came up screaming and sobbing, her silver hair streaming with water. Harry felt nothing. His mind was elsewhere. 3 weeks until the third task. 3 weeks until everything changed. The night before the final task, Harry stood in the room of requirement, surrounded by his allies. Ron and Hermione, his oldest friends, loyal beyond reason. Neville, quiet and determined, carrying the weight of his parents' tragedy. Daphne, cool and calculating, but with fire beneath the ice. And others. Augusta Longbottom, who had come in secret to hear the final plan. 2 members of the Order of the Phoenix, Remus Lupin and a witch named Nymphadora Tonks, sent by Sirius to observe and report. Tomorrow, Harry said. The third task begins at sunset. The champions enter the maze. The cup is at the center, enchanted as a port key to take whoever touches it to a graveyard in Little Hangleton. That's where Voldemort is waiting. And your plan? Lupin's voice was cautious. I'm going to destroy the cup. Publicly. In front of everyone. Harry outlined the details, how he'd enter the maze unauthorized, navigating by knowledge gained from Crouch Jr.'s journal. How he'd reach the center before any champion. How he'd shatter the port key and expose the conspiracy in a single dramatic moment. That's madness. Tonks's hair had shifted from pink to worried orange. You'll be expelled. Arrested. Maybe worse. Maybe. But Crouch Jr. will be exposed, Voldemort's plan will be ruined, and the wizarding world will have to face the truth. Harry's voice was hard. Sometimes madness is the only sane choice. And if something goes wrong? Augusta asked. If Crouch Jr. realizes what you're planning. Then we fight. Harry looked at each of them in turn. I'm not asking you to come into the maze with me. I'm asking you to be ready. To watch for threats. To protect the spectators if things go sideways. And to believe, Hermione added softly. That's what you're really asking, isn't it? You want us to believe this will work. Harry nodded slowly. I need you to believe. Because if we don't, if we let fear stop us, then Voldemort's already won. Silence fell over the room. Then Ron stepped forward, his hand extended. I believe, he said simply. Hermione took his hand, then Harry's. I believe. One by one, the others joined. Neville, his jaw set. Daphne, her eyes bright. Augusta, grim but resolute. Lupin and Tonks, exchanging glances before adding their hands to the circle. They stood there, linked together, a small band of allies against the coming darkness. Tomorrow, Harry said. Everything changes. For better or worse. He looked at each face, committing them to memory. His friends. His allies. His family, in all the ways that mattered. Let's make it for better. Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, The Trial of the Father. The morning of the third task arrived wrapped in fog. Harry stood at his dormitory window, watching grey mist curl across the Hogwarts grounds, obscuring the Quidditch pitch where the maze had been growing for weeks. Somewhere beneath that fog, hedges 20 feet tall formed an elaborate labyrinth. Somewhere at its center waited a cup that was meant to deliver him to his death. Not today. He dressed carefully, choosing practical clothes beneath his robes, trousers he could run in, boots with good grip, a belt with pouches for emergency supplies. His wand went into a forearm holster Daphne had procured from somewhere, allowing faster draws than a pocket or sleeve. The oath magic hummed beneath his skin, responding to his anticipation. It knew something important was coming. It was ready. So was he. Breakfast was a subdued affair. The champions sat at their house tables, surrounded by well-wishers and nervous friends. Cedric was pale but determined, accepting handshakes and backslaps from his Hufflepuff mates. Crumb sat alone, eating methodically, his dark eyes fixed on nothing. Fleur picked at her food, still visibly shaken from the second task. Harry sat with Ron and Hermione, not eating, watching everything. "You're sure about this?" Hermione asked quietly. She'd asked the same question a dozen times over the past week. His answer hadn't changed. "I'm sure. Because if something goes wrong, then I'll improvise." Harry managed a thin smile. "I'm good at that." Ron snorted. "That's one word for it." At the staff table, the fake Moody was drinking from his ever-present flask, his magical eye spinning lazily. It paused on Harry for a moment, just a moment, before continuing its rotation. Did he suspect something? Impossible to tell. Crouch Jr. had maintained his disguise flawlessly for months. A few more hours wouldn't break him. But those hours were all Harry had. He caught Daphne's eye across the hall. She gave an almost imperceptible nod. Everything was in place on her end, the emergency Wisengamot session was prepped and ready, requiring only Augusta Longbottom's invocation to begin. The moment Harry exposed the conspiracy, the political machinery would grind into action. Neville was sitting with some other Gryffindors, but his attention kept drifting to Harry. His role was simpler but no less vital: watch Crouch Sr. If the elder Crouch showed any signs of breaking free from the Imperius curse, or of trying to interfere, Neville would alert the others. Lupin and Tonks were somewhere in the castle, ostensibly visiting as family friends of students. In reality, they were positioned to respond if things went violent. Everyone was ready. Now they just had to wait. The day crawled by. Harry attended his morning classes, history of magic, potions, but retained nothing. His mind was elsewhere, running through scenarios, contingencies, escape routes. He'd memorized Crouch Jr.'s journal so thoroughly he could navigate the maze blindfolded. He knew where every creature would be placed, every magical obstacle positioned. The advantage of fighting someone who documented everything: they handed you the blueprint. Lunch came and went. The fog had burned off, revealing a bright June day that seemed almost mocking in its cheerfulness. Students lounged on the grounds, enjoying the sunshine, oblivious to the drama about to unfold. At 3 o'clock, Harry slipped away from the common room and made his way to the room of requirement. His allies were already there. "Final check," Harry said without preamble. "Positions. I'll be in the stands with Mum and Dad." Ron's ears were red with tension. "Watching for any Death Eaters in the crowd." "I'll be near the judge's box," Hermione added. "Close enough to hear what they're saying, far enough not to draw attention." "I'm shadowing Crouch Sr." Neville's voice was steady, but his hands were clenched. "Gran's sitting with him in the VIP section. She'll keep him talking while I watch for signs of the Imperius. I'll be coordinating with my father." Daphne had her political face on, cool, composed, ready for battle. "The moment you give the signal, we invoke the emergency session." Lupin and Tonks stationed near the maze entrance, Hermione confirmed. "Ready to intervene if Crouch Jr. tries to run." Harry nodded slowly. It was as good a setup as they could manage. "Remember, the signal is me destroying the cup. The moment that happens, everything goes public. We won't be able to take it back." "We know." Ron clapped him on the shoulder. "Stop worrying, mate. You've planned this to death. Now you just have to do it." Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one walking into a maze designed to kill him. But Harry didn't voice the thought. He just nodded, gathered his resolve, and headed for the door. "Harry." Daphne's voice stopped him. She crossed the room quickly, her composure cracking slightly. Be careful in there. The journal might not have everything. Crouch Jr. could have added traps that aren't documented. I know. And if something goes wrong, if you can't reach the cup, then I'll find another way. He met her eyes. I've been surviving impossible situations since I was 11. One more won't break me. She stared at him for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she leaned forward and kissed his cheek. For luck, she murmured. Now go save the world, Potter. Harry left before his face could go completely red. The stands around the maze were packed. Students, parents, ministry officials, international observers, everyone who was anyone in the magical world had turned out for the final task. Banners fluttered in the evening breeze. Vendors sold snacks and souvenirs. Omnioculars glinted as spectators jostled for the best views. Harry hung back at the edge of the crowd, watching. Waiting. The champions emerged from a preparation tent, walking toward the maze entrance. Cedric first, then Crumb, then Fleur. They looked small against the towering hedges, fragile in a way they probably didn't feel. Bagman's magically amplified voice boomed across the grounds, explaining the rules. First champion to reach the cup wins. Simple in theory. Potentially fatal in practice. On my whistle. The whistle blew. Cedric and Crumb entered the maze, swallowed by the hedges. Fleur followed a minute later. Harry counted to 60. Then he moved. The maze entrance was guarded, but the guards weren't expecting a fourth person. Harry hit them with stunning spells before they could react, quick, precise, exactly as he'd practiced. They crumpled without a sound. He levitated them into some bushes where they wouldn't be immediately visible, then slipped into the maze. The hedges closed behind him like jaws. Inside, the world was green and shadowed. The paths twisted and turned, walls of leaves pressing in from all sides. Harry could hear distant sounds, crashes, shouts, the roar of creatures, but the maze muffled everything, made it impossible to judge distance or direction. Didn't matter. He knew where he was going. Left at the first junction. Right at the second. Straight through the third, ignoring the blast-ended script that reared up in his path. It was chained, couldn't reach him if he stayed against the far wall. The journal had been thorough. Every trap, every creature, every dead end was mapped in Crouch Jr.'s cramped handwriting. Harry moved through the maze like a ghost, avoiding dangers before they could manifest. He encountered Cedric once, briefly. The Hufflepuff champion was fighting a giant spider, his wand blazing with curses. Harry slipped past while he was distracted. No time for heroics. The center of the maze was close now. He could feel it, a concentration of magic, the portkey's signature thrumming against his senses. The oath magic recognized it too, resonating with the enemy it was bound to find. One more turn. One more stretch of hedge-lined corridor. And there it was. The Triwizard Cup sat on a pedestal in the center of a small clearing, glowing with ethereal blue light. It looked beautiful. Harmless. Harry knew better. He approached slowly, wand raised, checking for additional traps. The journal hadn't mentioned any in the clearing itself. Crouch Jr. had wanted the champions to reach the cup easily once they got this far, but paranoia had kept Harry alive this long. The clearing was empty. Just the cup. Just him. Harry raised his wand. Bombarda Maxima. The curse shot from his wand like a cannon blast, aimed directly at the glowing cup. It never hit. A shield materialized out of nowhere, absorbing the spell in a flash of golden light. The cup sat untouched, still glowing, still waiting. Impressive, Potter. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. But did you really think